internet gods are not happy with us, and I have no leper gnomes to sacrifice.
Nah, again, because of the pandemic, they've kind of, locked down where we can procure them. Then, well, since they're now classified as an endangered species, well, yeah.
That's part of my fault.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the reverse of, people capturing and releasing laprises in order to replenish the lapras population, which, yes, was an actual thing that happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it looks like we're okay. Our resolution's down a little bit, but I think that's going to be just fine. If people are having issues, you guys can let us know. But let's go ahead and give a quick minute for people to get here, and then we will kind of resume back into the Twitter story. I am so sorry, guys. I did not mean for that to happen, but sometimes we have good internet days, and sometimes we have bad ones.
Yup.
And Shay's looking at this and going, "You guys are unprofessional. What the hell?"
It's fine. Don't worry. I understand.
Crap happens. Okay. Twitter hacked my stream. Oh no! Damn it, Shiro, you were supposed to protect my stream. Okay, so let's go ahead and resume this thing then, because I think we're back up and running. So back. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I know that everybody noticed the intermission music that was happening. We were having some error issues, and I think we've got them fixed, but let's go ahead and get back into the Twitter hack story. So we kind of covered the federal aspect of this, because I think Alex kind of put it eloquently. This might have given Trump a reason to go look into Twitter, but I cannot help but wonder if there's at least an FBI rep that's there, maybe looking for something along the lines of evidence that can lead towards an arrest. But I don't know if they're going to actually find it. And I agree with our live chat where they say that Twitter is, in fact, the final boss. It is, in fact, the final boss these days.
Well, yeah, but to kind of reiterate the point I made, I don't know at what point the stream kind of glitched out, but like I said, stuff like this wouldn't really necessarily fall under the FBI's jurisdiction unless there's some sort of federal crime that is happening at the Twitter building. Likely any investigation like this would fall under FCC jurisdiction, and even then, most you would see is that because of the safe harbor laws in place, there's not really much that'll happen.
Mm-hmm. I will say this, and this is just me from the tech perspective. If Twitter hasn't looked at this, or at least Jack Dorsey hasn't looked at this and said, you need to go update some code, you need to go and put in some more safeguards, then he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's being very irresponsible. Because from what I understand, this was a very malicious hack and pretty much done through a loophole of not... Because I've heard the inside job aspect of it, and we're going to get to that in a second. But also, supposedly people who are taking responsibility for this are also saying, like, Dorsey hasn't, or at least Twitter has never updated a lot of their security measures, so that's why they were able to get in so easily with such a malicious program.
Well, yeah, another way that they could get in, that just occurred to me as you mentioned that, because not everybody logs into Twitter using a username and password. No. Sometimes a lot of websites have login using Facebook, login using this.
Yeah, they've already said that they bypassed the what's the thing called, the two verification system through this.
Two-factor authentication.
Yeah, the two-factor authentication. And so at that point, that's pretty hard to get past. And at that point, it does actually make me wonder, if you were able to get past that with no problems, then yeah, your security measures are kind of balls right now, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, either they found a way to bypass the two-factor authentication, and likely, and this is why I stopped using the sign-in with Facebook thing on websites, is to kind of give people a brief lesson on how it works. Whenever you're signing up for a service that gives you the option to sign in through your Google account or to sign in through Facebook, what it does is that the website, so your Facebook account, your Google account, whatever you're using, creates what is called a token. And then it gives that token to Twitter saying, okay, this is a key that allows you to access this service without having to enter the username and password. And so if someone hacked the program that creates those tokens, that could be another way they could brute force their way in.
Yeah, there you go. Shay and Alex, I kind of want to get you guys' opinions on this too. Do you think that maybe one of the major issues here is that Dorsey or the executives over at Twitter have been lax in their security measures?
Most likely.
Maybe, but I mean, what's harder is that if they say that this wasn't inside job, so if they like say, hey, this wasn't a Twitter employee that, because what they're saying is that it was a Twitter employee that possibly works there that gave them access to it. So if it's someone that already works there and they already have those tools to get into those systems, but they just gave someone access to it, then that might not be on the realm of Twitter. That's just on the realm of that employee was just
that's something that you
coerced.
Yeah, you have a whole other issue, like a
So
whole other set of issues when it comes to that. Because
so it's hard to say, I guess, because right now it's like, even if they were to like beef up security, beef up their systems and stuff like that, if their employees need to have access to that, then they will have access to that. So if that was the case, but if it's the case of like, hey, it was a disgruntled employee that got in, but if this is a disgruntled employee that got in, then they also obviously still know how to get in, and they obviously still have access to that information. So it's just like, do they then go the route of like, hey, if someone leaves the company, then we have to change everything so that this person can no longer get in? Because from what they had said, it didn't seem like this person, whomever it was, logged in through passwords, because no one's passwords were compromised. It was just they somehow got backdoor access to these accounts.
Yeah.
So it's
which
hard
heavily suggests the admin mode.
I think I have an idea of how they could have done it. Because another factor we're forgetting is the pandemic. You have a lot of people working from home, so it could even be a case where maybe someone
that also
was on
might explain the security measures too. They are lax because they haven't been in the building.
Yeah, they haven't been in the building, or someone working on their personal computer connected to a VPN that is connected to Twitter could have had their own personal computer compromised. Yeah. That's another vulnerability that a lot of companies haven't accounted for. That could be how they could have gotten in. They could have gone after someone who was working from home because of the pandemic.
Yeah, probably. I think that's also a likely possibility.
Yeah, because here in California, you know, most employees still are working from home. Like, as far as I know, very few employees have started to go back. But at least from my job's perspective with us working from home, they put like almost every security measure in place for us before they had us work from home, because they know that, hey, since you're not in the office, your security system is going to be a little bit different. Yeah. And so then at that point, then that's on that, either that's on that employee for whomever it was. But even then, like if they logged in through an employee's computer and they had the whole VPN thing, it's like you should be at home then. But then it's also like, where were they at then?
Yeah.
That employee, like, where were you working from? Because if you're supposed to be working from home and VPNs are supposed to be where no one should be able to see what you're doing on your computer, then you must have been logged onto a public Wi-Fi network.
Yeah, not necessarily not necessarily a public Wi-Fi network. A lot of people kind of misconstrue how VPNs work, especially depending on the nature. Like, for example, something like NordVPN can obscure your connection to a point. However, if it's a VPN that connects you to a specific server, so if you're working from home and you're connecting to a VPN to access data that is on company servers, that one doesn't necessarily encrypt your connection. I mean, it's supposed to, and some really good ones can, but those ones that are meant to more or less...
But the really good ones have to be maintained regularly, and there's no possible way that's happening right now.
Yeah, and so that could be the big thing, is that if it's a VPN meant to connect one computer to a secure network, all it would take would be someone maybe having the wrong kind of link open when they're signing onto that VPN to create that vulnerability, whether it's through a keylogger or through some sort of ransomware that could basically seize control. Again, it would depend on the nature of the person who accidentally created that exploit, as well as just it's kind of a case of where there's multiple ways to do it, and the fact people are working from home have actually made it a lot easier, because a lot of these VPN programs people are using to work from home haven't been put under this kind of scrutiny to prevent this kind of thing until this point.
Yeah, so you guys have already kind of brought up the employee. There's another question that I want to get into with this, is that, okay, again, we're talking about possible like charges or things like that. Could we actually see repercussions being handed down to the employee if the employee gets found?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
do we actually
would be
see something
fired.
along the lines of federal charges being placed on them?
Not necessarily federal charges.
No.
I mean, unless it's proven that they're the ones who pocketed the Bitcoin, then they could face some sort of identity theft charge, something that's a lower level. Wouldn't
Yeah, because
necessarily
I
be
guess
nothing.
the speculation is that they can maybe be, again, leading back to the politicians' DMs getting downloaded and things like that. The question specifically is like whether or not this person would get suspected like terrorism charges because of the fact that they compromise all of these political accounts.
Well,
I agree with you on the Bitcoin stuff, but this one's a harder thing to justify.
Yeah,
I
that's
kind of want to say no because of the fact that they don't have the information though.
yeah, like most.
And then they didn't know what whomever they gave it to, they didn't know what they were going to do.
Yeah, most you could get them on if there were any charges filed. You would have to prove that getting that information was their intent. And most you could get would be some sort of a conspiracy charge, which even then may not necessarily be prosecuted at the federal level. Again, this stuff like this, unless they're able to prove that whoever did this was specifically trying to go after the DMs, trying to find sensitive information, it's one of those cases of if they would have to prove that it was a politically motivated hack and that DMs sent by these politicians was the target. And again, for all we know, the Bitcoin thing could be a false flag meant to divert attention away. But again, if you're expecting someone to be charged, it would be very, very difficult. A case would have to be made, and they would have to prove that it was politically motivated and that the DMs.
In all honesty, I don't think you would even be able to prove any of that stuff. I think the only way that you could get charges like that, and maybe I'm just I'm off of the clouds here, if maybe the Twitter, let's just say for sake of argument, the Twitter employee was the one who got the information. If they tried to sell it, then maybe more serious charges would get placed on. I don't know if it would be terrorism though. It would be one of those things where if he or she tried to sell it, then okay, there's malicious intent there. But the rest, I don't know about the rest. That's kind of my deal.
It wouldn't be a terrorism charge. There's already a precedent regarding like selling ill-gotten information. The most famous example was when a secretary at the Coca-Cola company stole the secret recipe and tried to sell it to Pepsi, and then Pepsi literally called the FBI on them. And so it's a case where it wouldn't be a terrorism sort of charge. It would just fall under that same sort of line.
Yeah, it'd be like corporate espionage, not necessarily treason. Something to that extent.
Yeah, it would have to depend on their intent for that information. Like what they were planning to do with it. Like even if it wasn't just selling it, what if it was like blackmail?
Yeah, that's true.
That's like trying to blackmail them.
Yeah, it would either fall under corporate espionage or it would be blackmail and extortion charges, which again may not necessarily be prosecuted at a federal level.
Yeah.
Plus it was so random.
The last question that we have, and I think this is pretty much open and shut on this, but I'm going to address it, is the employee might have been politically motivated. I do not buy that in the slightest because we're talking about, sure, some of the compromised accounts include Joe Biden, Barack Obama, both Democrats, but I believe there's one Republican in there too that was a compromised account before all the blue checks went down. And even then, when the blue checks went down, like that affects every bit of the political spectrum. So at that point, I just don't buy that it was politically motivated because it hurt both sides to an extent.
I also don't think it's politically motivated.
Yeah, I mean, if the dude was a straight-up anarchist, then that's fine. But if he was a straight-up anarchist, Lizard Squad would be taking credit for this.
Not necessarily. If it was an anarchist, basically, if it was an anarchist, it would be mostly political targets, unless they're the kind of anarchist that buys into conspiracy theories, which would explain Bill Gates.
Lizard Squad's probably a bad example, but like a hacker group would be taking responsibility for this because screw the government kind of thing.
Yeah. Then that wouldn't explain the targets because the target list is way too scattershot for that.
Yeah, because like they went after like Kanye West and a couple of like companies, like big major companies. Yeah. So it sounds like whoever did it, like they either really just wanted to scam people with Bitcoin, because if you think about it, these are people and companies where like if they did put something out there that was money wise, their like followers or whomever is on their followers list would probably do it. Yeah. Especially if it's like, I'm sorry to say this, but especially if it's like Kanye West. Like like, come on. Like, I personally am not the biggest fan of him sometimes,
See,
but like,
that's kind of the problem.
if he puts something out on there about like Bitcoin or whatever, and even though he's kind of slightly crazy, there are people who would probably actually do it. So they went after people whom they knew could influence a lot of people really quickly.
Yeah, as you're kind of pointing out, Shade, that's kind of the problem here. If this had just been Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, things like that, you might have a little bit more to go on. But you have Elon Musk, an entrepreneur. You have, for as much as we have called Kanye West crazy, we could still consider him an entrepreneur. So at that point, it's not just politics that are being affected by this. You're going into business as well. And so that's why I think the root of it isn't politically motivated. Again, you hurt every side. So, and on top of that, you hurt people's economics. Like Apple couldn't advertise a sale for the iPhone because of this whole thing, because their account was compromised. So it's not. If it was a much more pointed attack, I'd give you that, but not in this case.
Yeah, looking at this though, I'm surprised Yeezy hasn't tried creating his own cryptocurrency, because that would be something he would do. I guarantee at some point in the next few years he's going to try it.
Sure.
Don't give him ideas.
I mean, it's a great
He's already done the clothes that everyone's just like, why would I pay $800 for clothes with holes in it when I can make holes in my clothes at home?
Honestly,
for free.
Honestly, the guy, he's probably already thought of it. I mean, if you've seen his whole business model spreadsheet and how vague it is, I'm sure the idea's crossed his mind at some point. It's just...
Sure.
Yeah. It's just... I just gotta say this. As big as his ego is, Kanye West ain't really much of a political target. He may think he is, but he ain't.
No.
Granted, he announced he's running for president.
Yeah, he did announce that, but still, I'm not going to call this politically motivated on that, because he's announced. He's still an entrepreneur.
Not anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah,
he said no.
Yeah,
did he say no? Okay.
Yeah,
he took it back.
Yeah, he announced this week that he suspended his campaign, but he's still technically on the ballot in Oklahoma.
I'm telling you guys right here and now, it's we're gonna find out later that it was Trey Park and Matt Stone, and it was only to make like the best South Park episode ever. That's why the hack exists. Alex, you get to kind of wrap this up, and then we're gonna get into our next story, because you've been kind of quiet on this. Like, do you have any theories that you want to share?
Nothing really that I can substantiate. I'm still learning about the story because I heard about it late yesterday, so I'm still trying to wrap my whole brain around it to understand the whole thing. But as far as theories, I don't think it's politically motivated, because again, the targets are too broad. It's too broad of a base of targets between different political candidates and figures and other people. So if it's not an inside job, then it's got to be like just one of those hacker groups like Lizard Squad, for example.
Yeah. Since you're coming to this story brand new, are there any concerns that maybe haven't been shared yet?
Not quite. I mean, I'm sure everything that's been said has been said,
Yeah.
It's cybersecurity. It should really be a pressing issue as we go further into the year, especially with this election coming up. But, we have old farts running the nation always.
Well, yeah, pretty much. All right, so let's move on into the next story that we have tonight, which is technically this happened 2-3 weeks ago, I want to say, but we didn't have a whole lot of information on it, and that's why we didn't report on it. Dr. Disrespect has been banned from Twitch, and at the time when we were finding out about it, he, I believe, had said via Twitter or some other social media that he had not received any notification from Twitch as to why that was happening. We are now 2-3 weeks later. We still don't know a reason, because neither Twitch nor Twitch hasn't made an official announcement regarding it. And Dr. Disrespect has actually gone out to speak to a few journalists and said he hasn't received any information about why the ban occurred. In fact, he's kind of hinting right now that he might be, because he hinted that he's got lawyers involved in this. He's kind of hinting that there might be, or at least he's considering some kind of legal action against Twitch. So at that point, let's get into this one specifically. I'm a little, like, part of me wants to say I'm shocked that he hasn't gotten any kind of a notification on why he was banned. But, well, I've had streams taken down, and YouTube gives me no reason for it whatsoever. So I wish I could say I was shocked by that, but I'm kind of not.
Yeah, and we've covered stuff in the past where Twitch has been pretty vague about some of their own policies. So the fact that he was not given information about what led to the ban specifically is also not that surprising, given the platform's history of vagueness.
For crying out loud, if people here have played the Final Fantasy VII Remake or seen my streams of it, I got taken down by I got my stream taken down by YouTube for Cloud Strife, the main character, getting a hand massage. No joke. That's the only thing I can think of that would cause the ban. And I still can't explain it to this day, but I make fun of it. I will relentlessly make fun of it.
Well, yeah, it's like when Twitch banned one of the Senran Kagura games that was a Dynasty Warriors clone because of just that initial knee-jerk bias towards the Senran Kagura series.
Yep.
It's that same basic idea, is that unless they actually explain something, it could be one arbitrary reason or another. There are some theories that this GameSpot article floats regarding some of his conduct, but even then, looking at it, it's one of those cases where, yeah, I mean, there could be reasons, but the fact that Twitch hasn't issued any sort of statement is only really hurting them.
The one thing that I actually want to bring up here, because I don't know this off the top of my head, but one of the speculations that is going in legally for this is that there might have been an existing contract between Dr. Disrespect and Twitch, and that contract may have been violated in this ban. And so at that point, we might actually be looking at contractual issues over the ban, not necessarily that Dr. Disrespect is just suing over free speech or whatever. I know that he's gotten contracts from Twitch, but I don't know if he had a current one.
I don't know. That was kind of the prevailing theory for the last few weeks, that maybe there's something contractual, but I know very recently, as of like today or something, maybe even yesterday, that there's some newer theories popping up that there could be some serious legal issues going on with Dr. Disrespect. We're talking like potential criminal charges. I don't know. These are just some things I'm hearing through the grapevine, basically.
Yeah, I've been hearing that too, and I don't know how to take it just yet. Because unless it gets outed, I don't know if I could take it as a viable deal. But I've been hearing that too. So it could be contractual. It could be criminal charges against him. I am not entirely sure. But both parties are being kind of quiet on this. Romney, Shay, anything you guys want to add to this? Like, is Twitch in the right? Obviously, Twitch has the right to be able to ban people, but are they in the right for giving absolutely no reason to Dr. Disrespect why his channel was banned?
I mean, given that we haven't heard anything from Twitch, it's hard to say who is in the right, because we don't know what the rationale was for the ban in the first place. Nobody's talking, so it's hard to make that judgment.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue that we have here. Nobody's talking, and part of that is because, I'm guessing, because of legal strategy. So at that point, I don't know what has been revealed, and there's been 2 weeks where Dr. Disrespect has been quiet, and Twitch has been quiet on the matter.
I mean, I think Twitch doesn't have to give a reason if they don't want to. I mean, it would be good for him to know, like, especially if he did something wrong, so that he knows, not to do it. I mean, from the article I read, it says he has some ideas of what it could be, which is like surrounding conspiracies that he may have said on his channel, on his stream, which could have led to it. And he's wanting to take legal action because there hasn't been any communication. But I don't know if in Twitch's not laws, but in their own
terms of service.
Yeah, their terms of service, where they have on there that they have to give you a reason, because there could be somewhere in their laws that says, hey, we can ban your account or terminate your account without a reason. The same way that you can get fired from a job for no reason.
Yeah, that's actually
there is.
That's actually common with a lot of services. And given that terms of service are contracts of adhesion where you have to accept them in order to use the platform, that's literally one of the first things that they will often say is that, hey, we reserve the right to terminate your
Well, I
account.
mean, we
for
just
any reason
barely
whatsoever.
had YouTube kind of change their terms of service and notify people that they basically wanted to reserve the right to kick anybody off, even if they just felt like their bandwidth was not being used properly. So it wouldn't surprise me that Twitch either had this already or was in the process of amending their terms of service to reflect it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at any TOS, that's like one of the first things is that they say is that they reserve the right to terminate service at any time. That's literally like one of the very first things. I mean, you see it with stuff like Twitch and YouTube. I'm pretty sure that's even something that you see on Blizzard if you're signing up for Battle.net or any of their games, where that's literally one of the first things they saying, hey, we reserve the right to terminate your account at any given moment for whatever reason whatsoever. Maybe not in that exact phrasing, but that's usually one of the first things listed in
No,
any
the
TOS.
big thing that was scary about Blizzard, since you brought that up, was somebody actually just barely proved in the terms of service that they have the right to contact the necessary streaming services and take your stream down if they don't like what you're saying. And that was scary to me, because there are WoW streamers that can state stuff that's unpopular about Blizzard all the time. And what happens when you put an actual Activision guy in charge of that place? They're not going to, and they don't like negative criticism. You're going to see people like Asmongold getting taken down real fast.
Yep.
The only thing that I can think of where they could possibly be in the wrong is because Twitch did have where he exclusively only streamed on Twitch.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I can figure out that could probably put them in the wrong, where to me they probably should have said something to him only because of that reason in particular. Now, if they didn't have where he was only exclusively streaming on Twitch because Twitch somehow garnered, him to do that the same way how, Ninja was exclusively on Mixer, then I say, yeah, they probably should have given him a reason. But once again, they probably still don't have to if that's in their terms of service that they don't. But if they gave him a contract for him to exclusively stream on there for, I don't know, however much money it was, maybe it would have been good for them to give him a reason, but they also could give him a reason and then say, you're not allowed to tell people why we let you go.
Yeah.
Or why
it would be a legal issue that has to be resolved in a courtroom.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
especially if you're dealing with like any sort of NDA, that would definitely be a major factor.
Yeah.
And that I buy.
Because it could be anything. And to be honest, like I said, with a lot of jobs, you can be let go from a job and not be given a reason, and they don't have to give you one. They can just say, hey, you're out.
Yep. At will employment.
Yeah. So, and that's just how it is, with a lot of companies, and Twitch probably did the exact same thing. And it sucks on his end because, anybody would want to know why they're not able to do something anymore. And they want to know what they did wrong. So who knows? Maybe they will reach out to him later and tell him why. And they might also still, when they tell him, could say, hey, we're going to tell you the reason why, but you're not allowed to tell anybody why. Just like how in his interviews, when he's with his lawyer doesn't let him speak on it a lot. So I feel like there's some legal issues going on behind the scenes that none of us really know about.
Yeah,
that
and we probably won't know about at minimum 10 years. I know that some of those agreements have 10-year holds on them, and some of them have, now the recent ones have indefinite holds. So at that point, see, here's the thing, and Shay, you've kind of brought it up perfectly, is that I buy it if he had an existing contract, then I do think that he needed to be told, because at that point, if he had an existing contract where he was exclusively streaming on Twitch, then most of those contracts would be worded, at least if if he's got lawyers on his end, it would be worded to the point where if you have to terminate this contract, you have to notify him why you have to terminate it. And so at that point, but kind of like what we have said, that's going to be in a law firm's conference room. It's never going to be in the public scape. I don't even think it would be in 10 years. I will say this, though. According to Dr. Disrespect, he's officially done with Twitch. He's already looking at new avenues, including his own website to stream from here on in. He is no longer going to be using Twitch, and I've already heard that he's kind of reneged on YouTube as well. which doesn't leave a whole lot there. I mean, he could go to Mixer for however long they're going to be there.
No, they're probably not going to take on any new contracts. I can see them maybe trying to
No,
push
I'm not talking about contracts. I'm saying like he just starts streaming somewhere. Because I don't see it being Mixer, not with them becoming Facebook Gaming pretty soon.
Yeah, but I think they've even made it clear that you can't even create a new account on Mixer because of the impending shutdown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I just looked it up, and apparently Twitch did sign Dr. Disrespect to an exclusive 2-year contract back in March. So this was recent that he recently got a streaming contract with them for an undisclosed but life-changing amount of money. And it says the streamer had also made a deal with a production company to create an animated TV series around his character. It could also be possible that within his contract, it could also still have said, we can still cancel this contract at any time without telling you. So
But
that could have still been in the contract.
it's possible, but again,
Yeah.
with Dr. Disrespect, along with Keemstar and a couple other people, I can't think that they wouldn't have lawyers on their end. And so at that point, I would think that the lawyers would then amend, you have to give a reason for why the contract is terminated.
But
Yeah.
it depends on what his contract may have said.
Yeah.
Because if it's with money was involved, for some people, when they see that money, they see dollar signs, they sometimes don't even read the contract.
No.
Well, that's usually why they
Or
have
they
a
don't,
lawyer
or they don't care what's in it.
Yeah,
Well,
this is how you could tell a smart YouTuber from a dumb one, is that they like, for as much as we want to knock Keemstar, he has lawyers look over stuff like
Yeah.
that. But in the
I'm not
case
gonna say
of
A smart YouTuber or a dumb YouTuber, probably a naive one.
yeah, naive one. That's probably a better way to put it, because the example that I would come up with is, and I don't want to bring the guy up because it just brings up controversy, is Etika. Because I remember when his first hospitalization happened, one of the things he credited it to was he wanted to get out of the oppressive MCN he was under. And so at that point, he basically went all, like in his first admission into psychiatric ward, is that he was going all crazy so that he could get out of his MCN. That makes sense. I don't think that's what's happening here with Dr. Disrespect, though. So, all right. Well, I think we've pretty much covered this one. Alex, anything you want to add to it before we move on to the next one?
No, nothing really from me.
Okay. I mean, aside from the fact that we just barely heard Darkside Phil also got a ban today.
Yeah.
Romney, I need you to say what you said earlier again, just to kind of give our opinions on this.
Darkside Phil is still relevant.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it all.
I mean, there is one.
Unless Shay wants to add something to it.
Well, looking at the article, there is one facet of the ban that could be relevant, given that last week we discussed a lot of the sexual abuse and sexual assault allegations that have come out in the gaming community that led to the cancellation of EVO. Some people speculate that could also be a reason, because apparently a lot of other channels on Twitch that were among the accused were also banned. They believe that may also be playing a factor.
Good,
and that could also be why Dr. Disrespect could be silent. But again, innocent until proven guilty. We don't know all the facts, but that could be a contributing factor. Maybe Twitch is jumping the gun.
Yeah, we're not going into the Twitter rules of justice. Like, let's actually give them a time to be in a courtroom. All right, let's go ahead and move into this. This is where we get into basically a swath of anime content. You know, Alex gives me a lot of crap for the fact that I don't get anime stories in there as often as I can. But tonight, he kind of gets what he wants, because the majority of the rest of the podcast is anime connected. And actually, because of a friend of the podcast who is going through a very rough time. I've talked to him about this. He's asked that I not give names or anything like that, but he's going through a very tough situation right now, given recent events, and that's really all he's given me permission to say. But he had a bit of a request, and now we've kind of melded it into something that would work. We're going to get to that in a second, but I want to get into the first story that we have, which is the official announcement that Shaman King is returning. Shaman King is back. I know that Romney is excited about that, and I also have another friend who is excited about this one as well. But I'm not certain on the differences between this new series and what the old Fox series was. Romney, can you shed some light on that?
With pleasure. You see, when the previous anime was released, it kind of had the same problem that Full Metal Alchemist ran into when it had its first adaptation, where the anime caught up to the manga too quickly, and because of the fact that that the anime got canceled, they had to rush to an ending, so that way the story of the anime would make some semblance of sense. Whereas when after the anime concluded, when Hiroyuki Takei was able to actually finish the manga, basically it was a combination of two different factors, where you had the manga itself running, but then it went on hiatus in 2004, and then it resumed with the new ending being released in 2009. Because of that hiatus and the fact that the anime caught up to it, they had to basically cobble together an ending because they couldn't pull a Frieza saga and just keep it going and going and going while waiting for Takei to come up with a new ending because it wasn't even being published. And so what they're hoping to do with this new series is basically do what they did with Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, is let's go back through and readapt the manga and basically tell the story as it was told in the manga in a new, faithful way. And especially now that Shaman King is no longer owned by Shueisha, which surprised me, the Shaman King manga is now owned and published by Kodansha. That's what's allowing for this new adaptation, is that Kodansha is now footing the bill saying, okay, we're going to approve this readaptation. And considering that the announcement video used the theme song from the anime, they probably were able to cut the deal with Toei to license the music, which back when Takei was approached by an anime studio to readapt it, that was a big thing he was pushing for. He wanted to bring back the original voice cast. He wanted to reuse a lot of the original music because, as some people may not know, Hiroyuki Takei actually worked on the Shaman King anime to the point where he even drew and did some of the animation himself. That is how involved he was.
Who was
and so
the person that owned the original anime? Was it 4Kids?
Well, here's where you're kind of conflating it. The anime was distributed in the United States by 4Kids. However, the anime itself was partially animated by Toei. It was. I believe it was animated by Toei originally because it was under their deal with Shueisha. But I'm gonna double check.
It was animated by Zybeck.
Zybeck. Okay. I know that there was some sort of distribution issues with it, which is why when 4Kids tried to release the uncut version of Shaman King on DVD, they got sued by pretty much all the distributors they cut deals with. And so, yeah.
So
that's kind of what the situation is that.
So who,
yeah.
with the new anime, I guess my question is, because I mean, obviously with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, you had kind of a change there, because I believe by that point, by the point that Brotherhood was out, Aniplex was already getting merged into Sony.
No, that was quite a while ago.
Okay.
Yeah, Brotherhood, that was back when the deal was still with Funimation, where Funimation had the simulcast rights. And so that was before the Aniplex merger. I was in high school when Brotherhood aired.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, they were
10
able to secure the same actors. And I couldn't remember if it was because Aniplex was working with Funimation or if Funimation just had the overall rights. So at that point,
Funimation had the simulcast rights.
Okay.
And this was back when it was Funimation having the rights to all of Full Metal Alchemist. This was before Aniplex USA was even really a thing.
Okay.
And so that was a whole separate thing where, because the show was being worked on by Aniplex in Japan, they brought back the same voice actors, whereas here in the States, because Aaron Dismuke had aged out of the role of Alphonse, they had to recast. But this is a similar situation where they're basically going back to the original manga of Shaman King and are basically readapting it from the very beginning, so that way they can basically...
That's kind of leading into my question here. Is it the same people animating it, or are we going to be looking into a new dub studio? Or, like, do we have that point where Alphonse has grown up has grown up in that time? Do we have things that are not going
I can already tell you one thing. It will definitely probably not be Zybeck, because Zybeck has been dissolved and absorbed into Sunrise as a whole new studio now, so it's probably going to be somebody else.
Yeah, looking at the article here, it doesn't say which studio is working on it. It just confirms that Kodansha is the company. They're going to be republishing the manga both in Japan, Europe, and the United States, since they're the ones who own the rights. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't say which studio is animating it. It just says which networks are going to be airing it, which are basically on two specific services: Full Anime TV and Bonbon TV, which is both. Oh no, wait, that's the announcement where they're going to restream the earlier anime adaptation. But so far, we don't know which studio is going to be doing this new series. We just know that they're going to be doing a new series, as well as working in material from the newer one-shots that Decay had drawn since then, being Shaman King Zero and Shaman King Flowers. It's basically readapting the manga from the beginning, so they probably will have the Japanese voice cast come back, but in regards to who's voicing the characters for America, don't expect the... I mean, if Funimation gets it, I can see them bringing Sean Schemmel back as a Mitamaru, but a lot of the voice cast from 4Kids have since either left the industry or have moved on to other things. So getting them to come back...
I think a lot of those people went to... I think some went to Funimation, but some of them went to Viz, right? So if it's Funimation only, could you even get those people at this point?
Well, the only one... If it is Funimation, there are some people that would be willing to come back. Because again, Sean Schemmel, he was the voice of Mitamaru in the English dub and voiced some other minor roles. And so they probably would be able to get some voices back, but even then, there's no guarantee that Sean would want to be a Mitamaru again. I can see him maybe wanting to do it, but I can also see them handing it off to other voice actors that aren't as established because of the fact there's all these other projects that the well-known Funimation voice actors are attached to. And again, that also raises the question if it's going to go to Funimation or if it's going to go to Viz, because Viz, problem is Viz no longer has the manga publishing rights because Kodansha, again, now owns the rights, and Kodansha has their own USA
if Kodansha has a reputation with working with certain distributors, and I don't think they do.
I think Kodansha overwhelmingly goes with Funimation most of the time. That's just based on the trends I've seen with a lot of Kodansha manga. I'm sure there's some examples where Sentai, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way because there have been some Kodansha series that haven't been picked up by Funimation, but have been picked up by Sentai and other distributors. Because I know one of their other Kodansha properties that they've been distributing the manga for in the US, Cardcaptor Sakura, from what my understanding, and Alex, feel free to correct me, you probably know more about this I do, I don't believe it's Funimation that's dubbing Clear Card, are they?
No, they did.
Oh, okay.
Cardcaptor is a little complicated because it's been split up across like a few licensors. Like the original series is held by NISA. The Clear Card is by Funimation. The movies are by Discotech. So yeah, there's a lot of different holders of that property.
Yeah, and so in the case with Shaman King, because the license has been dormant for so long, it's pretty much up in the air. I can see Kodansha going to Funimation. I could also easily see Viz trying to cut a deal because of the brand recognition, but because Viz is no longer able to publish the manga, because Kodansha USA is going to be re-releasing and retranslating the manga, it really will come down to which company is going to get the simulcast right. So I can see Crunchyroll cutting some sort of a deal. I can see Funimation trying to cut some sort of deal. It's pretty much hard to tell. And even if a company does cut the deal, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same dubbing studio. For example, it may be a case of, okay, maybe Sentai, but then they contract the dubbing out to a studio like Bang Zoom, like what we saw with the JoJo dub, where Warner Brothers had the rights, but then they had Bang Zoom do the English dub for JoJo.
Yeah.
And so it's still too early to tell. We're not going to be seeing anything until 2021 when the anime is set to debut. But I'm excited because the way the first anime series ended, it's really, really, really abrupt. You can tell they had to quickly wrap it up because they had no idea what was going on. Because suddenly the whole Shaman tournament thing got thrown out the window because, and I keep having to remind myself, in the English dub he's called Zeke, in the manga he's called How because 4Kids and their Flanderization, but Zeke basically changed things so that the whole Shaman tournament had to be abandoned, causing basically the people in charge to have to do a mulligan and wait for a new comet to call for a new tournament because of how effed up everything became. And I know that doesn't line up with the way the manga ended, so it's a case of, hey, at least it'll be nice to have an adaptation that doesn't end super abruptly and basically pull an ending out of its butt.
True. For the next question that is actually being brought up by the live chat, I want to actually bring this up to Shay for her insight on this. So they bring up a good point. Shaman King has been gone since, I want to say it was in the 2000s when it was on Fox. It might have even been in the 90s when it was on Fox.
No, it was 2000s. The anime aired in Japan. It aired from 2001 to 2002, and so in the US, it kind of aired in that same sort of chunk of time. So it was early 2000s.
So at that point, we're talking a lot of distance between the competitors that it had to deal with then versus now. So like where it was in the Fox bracket, like you could say its competition was probably Yu-Gi-Oh. I think would be the best comparison of competition for them. But now we're talking about bringing Shaman King, a shonen anime, into the era of My Hero Academia, of
Demon Slayer.
Demon Slayer, of jeez, what's the one that is it? My Life as a Goblin Slayer. That's also a shonen that's going on.
Well, I'm not sure if Goblin Slayer counts specifically as shonen. That's more of a seinen series.
Pick up Girls in Dungeons, I think is the one I'm
Is it
thinking
wrong
of.
to pick up Girls in a Dungeon? That one's not really a shonen series.
Okay.
That's more of a harem series.
Okay, I
Probably, like,
was told it was a shonen.
Tower of God.
Yeah, Tower of God is a much like
The
Tower
God
of
of High
God would-
School.
God of High
Yeah,
School. Actually, that's the one I was thinking of. God of High School, because you did a review of it.
Yeah.
So do we see Shaman King being able to contend with these? Because I'm gonna say right here now, I think the cards. I mean, granted, in the 2000s the card was kind of loaded, but here I think it's even more loaded than it was.
Well,
I think it's fine. I think it'll be fine. I mean, even
Well, yeah.
as crowded as the market for shonen anime and manga is, there's always an audience for it. They're always super popular over here.
yeah. Plus, the other thing to consider is that like we have stuff that may be competition right now, but there are series on the horizon coming out around the same time that this new series will debut that it'll have to contend with. A good example would be Jujutsu Kaisen, which is another Shonen Jump series that is going to be adapted into an anime next year. That might be more of the competition because Demon Slayer, the manga, recently concluded, and the anime is going to be following suit pretty soon. And so, in terms of competition, Shaman King's got kind of a niche for itself. The biggest competition I see is Jujutsu Kaisen and maybe the new Bleach anime, which we'll get into later. Those I can see being the major competitions because those kind of have a supernatural bend to them. That's kind of Shaman King's advantage because My Hero Academia, catering mostly to superheroes, and then One Piece, nothing's going to really dethrone One Piece except for One Piece. So it's kind of one of those cases where as a supernatural shonen offering, Shaman King's got a pretty good chance, especially given that although here in the States the brand was dormant, in Japan it still has a bit of a following, especially Hiroyuki Takei still has a fair bit of a following. He's just kind of become a bit of an auteur ever since he was working on Shaman King, then worked on Ultimo, and then kind of just started doing his own thing. So it'll find its audience.
I think for me personally, I think it depends on the fan base here. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, you guys said the first dub was done by 4Kids, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
So that's, to me, is what might be the difference. Because when I think about like Full Metal Alchemist, like, Full Metal Alchemist, the first one was done by Funimation. The second one was done again by Funimation. But then the fan base for Full Metal Alchemist was pretty solid. Like, it was still very much a beloved anime even before they came out with Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And so I think with Shaman King, like, since you now have a whole nother studio that's probably going to be doing the dubbing for it, and it's probably going to be different than the one that 4Kids did, because we all know 4Kids is known for changing a lot of stuff for anime when they're brought over here, like they did with One Piece first before Funimation started doing that dub. But so I think it's gonna really depend on the fan base, and if the fan base is gonna be used to those switches that Funimation might do compared to the original 4Kids dub that they did. And if that fan base is still tight enough to like want to watch this new series, and I think that's what it's going to mostly go down to. It's going to depend on the fan base, and that's what's going to have to make it compete. I mean, the anime could be great, but if the fan base of the original one isn't watching the new one, and no new people are going to watch this new one either because of the gap, it may not compete. And I think that's just me going based off of what I saw with Fullmetal Alchemist, is because that fan base was so tight. So when they announced Brotherhood, people went crazy, and then with them bringing back a lot of the original,
they're still 2003 dub purists. So I mean, those still exist, and you can't get rid of those. I won't deny that. I will say, at least on my portion, I had friends that wanted me to get into Shaman King, and I couldn't, and it was just because I caught a couple of episodes, and things, I don't know how to explain it other than things felt really disjointed. That there wasn't a whole lot of consistency with it. I talked to fans, the friends that were recommending it to me later, and saying the problem that you might have had is that you needed to see the manga, because then the manga would have had a lot of the consistency you wanted. So I will say I'm genuinely curious if this is going to follow the manga, because at that point, like, I love 2003 Full Metal, but I love Brotherhood just that much more because of the story consistency. And I think one thing that where me and Shay are going to come on different ends of on different ends of opinion is because I think you aren't the biggest fan of the Sailor Moon Crystal series. I tend to like it a little bit more than the series that was made back in the 80s, 90s, because, again, it feels a little bit more consistent. There's a more consistent story being told. So at that point, like, I find myself with a lot of these manga reboots, like, wanting to strictly adhere to it. It works a little bit better, especially with the way that shonens work these days, where One Piece can have an arc that lasts for forever, and then the mangaka is still working on the next one, so they have to do a filler arc to fill it in until he gets done. And though I've gained such a disdain for filler arcs in the last few years.
Yeah, but considering that the whole point of it, that it even says in the press release that it's going to readapt the manga, in terms of its consistency, that you can pretty much rest assured is, yeah, they're going to follow the manga.
And so that's why I'm saying I might actually be more of a fan this time, because the story is going to feel a little bit more consistent in that regard.
But just hopefully they get a lot of stuff right.
Yeah.
Like with the manga, because I've never watched Shaman King, I've never have read the manga, but I just hope they get it right, because even if a studio is going based off of the manga, there is some stuff that they might take out, omit, maybe not do as correctly as it probably should be done. And I guess that's like with your point with Sailor Moon Crystal, like, it's supposed to follow the manga, but the personalities of the characters were just off for me compared to, like, even with the manga, they were better in the original than they were in the new one. But I mean, I guess that's what it is. But I mean, only time's gonna tell, like, when this finally comes out. And so by all means, this new series could perform greatly well, even with the gap in between. And I think at that point, it's just up to the fan base to kind of keep it alive.
I would actually say I think returning fans are probably not going to keep it alive. I think with the amount of time that's gone by and the fact that maybe some people didn't see this, new fans might be the way that this thing thrives. In all honesty, I think in the fact that it's coming out years later, now new anime fans can get into it and they can become the diehard fans of it. Returning fans, I think a few of them will come back. I just don't think a lot of them are.
Well, especially when you consider that Takei has been doing Shaman King content in the interim between the ending of the original series to now, a lot of the older fan base is still there. Again, he has done he's done like one shots, but has also done a full-on sequel series that ran from 2012 to 2014. So it's a case of where it may be a mix of both, where you'll have the older fans coming back, you may have the newer fan base coming in, especially if they decide to skew a bit older, because the manga, even by shonen manga standards, it gets pretty disturbing. Like, so much so that I wonder how in the hell 4Kids thought they could even ever adapt it.
How on earth do you keep recommending disturbing things to me, Romney?
Well,
jeez.
Here's the thing. It's not like disturbing in the sense it'll give you nightmares. It's just more disturbing in the sense of who in the hell thought this would be appropriate for kids in America? Because, again, Shaman King is literally dealing with ghosts and the undead. So it's one of those things of, it's expected that it's going to go dark.
See, part of me wanted to argue with you, but then I'm like, oh, yeah, there's a reason Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 1 didn't come to the States.
Well, that one's more of a different thing, because technically Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 is not really Season 0. It's technically a different series, because that was animated by Toei, whereas the anime Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, which is what we got, was animated by a different company. And so for people saying, oh, how come they never released Season 0? It's because it's a whole different licensing issue.
Yeah.
Or to quote Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridged, it was super violent and depressingly bad.
Well, is there, for example, for Shaman King, for the first series that came out in the early 2000s. Is there a way where people can still view this series?
Well,
If they
it
make it
depends on-
available, like Romney was saying, then
Well,
yes.
Because, I mean,
like according to the website here, they will be streaming the old series on a couple of TV services in Japan, so I can see them maybe trying to promote it. The problem is there's no way to really watch it available in English because of the fact that it was dubbed by 4Kids and had a lot of those issues.
that was kind of where I was going. I could see Crunchyroll.
There was
that-
an uncut version by Funimation at some point, so
Well,
if
there
they
was.
still have those,
I
even
actually
if it's
have.
just subtitled.
Actually, the uncut versions, they only got 2 volumes in, and I know this because I actually own copies of the uncut version. They literally only got 8 episodes into doing the uncut version before 4Kids got sued by all of the anime licensors because they didn't have the rights to the music, and they were working with Funimation to distribute it, which violated their contract. So only 8 episodes, actually only 7 episodes, now that I think about it, because Volume 2 only has 3 episodes. Only 7 episodes of the anime have an uncut dub and an uncut release, but those aren't available to stream anywhere because 4Kids went under and a lot of the assets were liquidated when Konami bought it. So the only way for people to watch it would be subtitled, but it would be fan sub because there is no official US distributor for the 2001 anime.
Yeah,
so
I just
thought that's
barely
what
I just barely looked up on the Funimation app, and
Yeah,
it's not here. So
Yeah, because that's why I think why it's kind of conflicting for me for whether or not it's going to do well, because like with Fullmetal Alchemist, like you were still able to stream that years after it had finished, so the fan base became new fans liking Fullmetal Alchemist because they could watch the old series, and people who had already watched it were able to rewatch it. You were able to buy the DVDs, you were able to buy them digitally, and it was able to keep that fan base alive with new fans coming in. So when Brotherhood was announced, you had a plethora of people who were old fans of it and new fans who had just watched Fullmetal Alchemist actually excited for Brotherhood. So with this one, it's different because it's like, well, you have the only people who might be truly excited for this new series are those who have already watched Shaman King, and the new fans probably won't really get involved with Shaman King until this new series is out, which is why it's like a flip coin of whether or not it might do well, because it's not something that's considered continue to be syndicated or continue to be, rewatched throughout the community in a way where a lot of people could just happen upon this show and start watching it and then love it and then be excited for a new series.
True, but the best counterpoint to that, though, would be the Fruits Basket reboot, where Fruits Basket, much like Shaman King, had that period of dormancy where there hadn't really been adaptations available. And so it's one of those cases where it'll still probably find its footing, but the other factor when people compare Brotherhood is that there wasn't as big a gap between Fullmetal Alchemist and Brotherhood. It was like at most a 5-year gap where it was still very much fresh in people's consciousness, because I know that Aniplex had to really, really beg Arakawa to get permission to do Brotherhood, because Arakawa initially didn't want them to do Brotherhood because she was just like, hey, I like what you guys did with the anime. I kind of want the adaptation to be different, whereas Aniplex is just like, yeah, but your ending is much better when we really want to do that ending.
Yeah.
True, but Fruits Basket you could still watch through Funimation. Like they still had it for you to be able to continue to watch,
and
before they still had the manga that were out.
Before Funimation, like Hulu had it, and a couple of places had
distributed out. Because when I watched Fruits Basket, it had been way after it had aired. Like I didn't watch Fruits Basket for the first time until like 2009, 2010 was the first time I watched it, even though it came out in 2001.
That's
and so
my time too.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, that's kind of what I mean. Like it was still distributed, and yeah, it was a very long gap in between, but then the fans of the show were still able to, like, there's still new fans getting involved with Fruits Basket due to it still being distributed.
Yeah, and actually one thing that just got brought up, because my wife wanted me to bring this up, is that I guess because she's been following it, I haven't been following it, but Beyblade has maintained popularity because a lot of the older fan base has been able to support the new shows as well as support campaigns to be able to get the original series back on YouTube as well as other streaming platforms considering it. So the old guard might actually come in and help out Shaman King and get the word out there so that people can watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, that'll really depend on, since the press release mentions that they're going to be streaming the original anime on these services in the lead up to it, maybe they'll be able to cut some sort of deal with a service like Crunchyroll or High Dive or even Verve to think, hey,
Crunchyroll, I see, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's a case of where they may think, hey, we kind of want to drum up hype for this series, but again, because there is no English dub of it uncut, that may hinder it a little bit. But again, it's hard to say.
But
It's possible.
You also might have the issue of what Full Metal Alchemist had. One of the reasons I think that it works so well, that Brotherhood works so well, is that you don't have to watch the 2003 series to be able to get it. You don't have to understand who Edward Elric is from that series to be able to get it. And so at that point, it becomes an option to watch the original stuff. You can come in just from brand spanking new, in my case, where I've watched very little of the original Shaman King. I'm going to come in on this new series and I'll be like, okay, I am interested in this one. Maybe I'll go pick up the old one and just check it out, but I know I'm going to be following this one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
It's possible that whomever they decide to let do the dub, whether it's Funimation or whomever, they might actually make a deal with them to let them stream or have the original series on there for English subtitled to be able to let fans watch it.
I could see them doing
or
it,
let people watch it. Like I could see that happening, honestly.
Because they would want to drum up with the hype. They want to get people watching the simulcast. So at that point, they will make that available. So let's go ahead and get into the next one, because I think we've pretty much hit this. I'm actually kind of excited about this. If this follows the actual manga, I'm way more invested into watching this new series. Also because Romney has been prompting it quite a bit. But I'm just very excited to be able to see this if it's following the actual manga. This one, however, this is the actual request, and I think we need to get into this because we actually kind of are running out of time here, and I don't want to run over too much because of our issues. This is kind of why we brought Shay on, is because we want to bring more controversy to your channel. Let's just be honest. We just want to bring more bad comments. No, I'm kidding.
Great.
We don't want to bring bad comments to you. Another thing that happened, this actually was way back in March, but Tite Kubo, I think that's how you say his name.
He pronounces it Tite Kubo.
Tite Kubo?
Yeah.
Tite Kubo came out and announced that he was going to have a whole new manga project that was going to be on, oh crap, I can't remember its name off the top of my head, but he's going to be redoing an older work into an OVA. But that wasn't the big exciting thing that a lot of fans of Tite Kubo were interested in. They got the announcement that the Bleach anime is returning. Now, we need to clarify this really quick because a few listeners actually got this wrong a little bit. This is not, a lot of people, I guess there was a rumor going around that this was going to be a complete readaptation of Bleach. And no, it's not. Tite Kubo has officially announced that this is going to be taking the last arc they were unable to do, the dubbed 1,000-Year Blood War arc. I'm saying that right, aren't I?
Yeah.
So the 1,000-Year Blood War arc is going to be adapted into the anime. We already know that 2 voice actors are confirmed. Johnny Young Bosch, who played Ichigo, and I believe the actress who played Rukia have said that they will return to the project to be able to voice their respective characters. But yeah, this is not a full-on anime adaptation. Like, they're not redoing the substitute arc again, or any of the filler arcs. This is just to do the 1,000-Year Blood War arc and to put closure to the Bleach series. Because if I remember correctly, it was just that arc, Shay, that hadn't happened, right? Because they had the what was it called? The Fullbring arc. They did that.
That was the last arc that they did. That was the final one.
Yeah, but they never got around to this one. So
yeah.
First of all, I'm going to ask your thoughts on this. Are you excited for Bleach returning in anime form to finish out the story?
I'm excited and also nervous.
You know what? I'm kind of there with you. Like, I'm not the biggest Bleach fan, but I at least got interested into the pivotal arcs that Kubo was writing. The filler arcs are horrible to watch. I'm sorry.
Some of them are horrible. The bounce arc for me was the one that did me in. I didn't like that one at all.
I don't like the Bount one. I got about I watched that whole one and I was mad that I did. And then the Shinigami, or not the Shinigami, but the release sword arc where Muramasa came in and unsealed all the Zanpakutos. That I got halfway through and I was like, I can't do this.
It was just really weird.
It was weird. It was and then I found out it was just a filler arc and I'm like, nope, screw this. But yeah, I'm at least excited about this one because apparently a lot of people are also speculating, and I want to ask your opinion on this, Shay, as well as Alex and Romney, if you guys want to step in here. A lot of people feel, according to Bleach YouTube and things like that, the 1,000-Year Blood War arc got a bit rushed near the end, and Kubo was not able to properly explain a lot of things in the series that people wanted to see. And so a lot of people are speculating that this might be Kubo's second chance at being able to give a little bit more information in regards to the ending, as well as give a little bit more light towards certain bankais and other abilities that got shown but weren't properly explained.
I don't see that happening. I mean, because just to be completely honest, I had said I was nervous about it because I feel the same way with this coming out, the same way I kind of felt when they did Inuyasha, the final arc. Because when Inuyasha came out, it ended kind of similar to how Bleach did. Like, it just kind of ended because I guess they had caught up with the manga and it wasn't yet finished. And so with Inuyasha, they then brought it back like 2 years later after the manga had ended, but then gave us a 24 episode series that, not even 24 episodes, or maybe it was like 24 episode series for that last chunk for that entire series. And to me, they rushed that. And it was kind of like, that's why with Bleach and with this last arc, it's like, I'm excited for it because I want to see it animated. But then I'm also very nervous that they're going to only give us like a 24 episode, last arc as a last goodbye per se, because it's like, are they really going to want to spend how many episodes they did for so many of the other seasons? Are they going to want to spend that amount of time on this arc, or are they going to want to split it into 2 different seasons, or however they want to do it? So it's possible that they might give us like 24 episodes to tell that entire arc.
Yeah, we didn't get given a whole lot of details on how many episodes have been ordered or anything like that. And I kind of agree with you. It needs like 2 seasons. I mean, for crying out loud, look at some of the arcs that they've done for Bleach. They needed 2, maybe even 3 seasons in some cases, specifically like with the Arankar arc, to be able to properly get that out. So, and from what I hear in this one, it's bigger, and therefore they want to be able to get as much into it as they can. So I'm kind of there too. Like, I'm a little concerned.
I don't think they're going to give us as many episodes as we think, because some people also said that it was rumored that the reason why they also cut it short was because of the production costs and how expensive it was getting. Yeah. And so apparently, and then with everything that's now going on, like, who knows now if any company is going to want to spend a whole bunch of amount of money trying to convert this arc to an anime and giving it so many episodes, because they probably won't, because easily the Inuyasha last arc could have easily been so many more episodes, but they gave us 24 or 26. And so with Bleach, I can still see them only giving us 24 to maybe 26 episodes.
I'll tell you honestly,
tell this entire story.
I'll tell you what I honestly think will happen, and you tell me if you agree or not, Shay, because I see that they order, let's just say 20 episodes. They order 20 and then they watch it. They literally watch to see the viewership that happens with it. And if it's not above a certain line, I could see that they say, okay, you only get like 10 additional episodes. We're not paying for any more. You have to wrap this up, kind of thing, because we don't want to lose a whole lot of money. I mean, we already know that the dubbing studio and Studio Perio are coming back to do the animation for it, but they've also kind of emphasized that this is a passion project for a lot of them. And so at that point, passion projects are great and all, but that means that there's probably not a whole lot of money being put towards it, if that makes sense. And if there's not justification for it, the passion project does not become a full-on project.
I feel like I agree with you. I feel like it might be that might happen, or they'll do those few episodes and then probably do a movie.
Yeah, you know what?
I can see that happening. Like, because I feel like, and honestly, in some ways, I feel like just go with the movie. I would rather see this summed up in like an hour and a half movie, because then I could explain away them cutting stuff out because it's an hour and a half movie. But when it's like you're putting something into episodes, I find it harder to explain taking some stuff out because you have more time. To me, at least, to space it out between different episodes. And just me like just scrolling through the Wikipedia and like how many episodes each seasons are, they all vary. I mean, the first season's like 20 episodes, so I could see them putting this into 2 seasons, possibly, like two separate arcs or 2 separate seasons, however you want to put it. I can see them doing that, but I can see them maybe giving us one more, just one, just to tell that last arc. And I mean, but who knows? I mean, there are some series that their only series is just super long. Like, look at Death Note. Like, Death Note, only one series, and that it's over 50 episodes, and it's just one season.
Well, I mean, your average Gundam season can be like 40, and that's a season 1. So at that point, like, if it gets approved for a season 2, which sometimes that doesn't happen, that's another 40. That's a lot of money.
That's largely because the way seasons work in Japan, they don't work the same way they work in the US, where Japan doesn't really have TV seasons. They just keep shows going and going and going until they either end it or cancel it. They don't have like mid-season breaks like we do here in the States.
Yeah.
And so that's why you have
I think the only reason they have breaks is when they need to animate more stuff, right?
Yeah, when they need to animate more stuff, or if there's some sort of event going on that requires the creator to go on hiatus. That's kind of the key thing. That's why anime seasons can be really, really long in Japan, is because, well, they don't really have seasons. They kind of follow more the British model, where they have series, but then unlike British models where they treat it as like a mini series, it's a case of, okay, we just keep going until we either get canceled or we have to stop for one reason or another. And so that's why anime seasons tend to be pretty long if they're really, really popular, is because they just keep airing and airing and airing until something tells them to stop.
Yeah, I feel like like you said, I agree with you on that, and that mostly they just put it into arcs. It's like if they go on from one adventure to another adventure, that's a new arc per se. Which is what they do with, like, did with Bleach. They have it split into arcs because of different problems. Like, even Dragon Ball Z is split into arcs, you know? But, I mean, I'm just nervous about this. I'm excited. Like, when I first heard the news, like, I was like, what? Like, this is coming back? Like, you serious? Really? And then, like, also, then I got flashbacks to Inuyasha, the final act, and I was like, oh, crap, they might pull that.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm excited anymore.
That. But I could tell you one other thing that I think is gonna really hurt this series, and you tell me if I'm right on this, Shay, because after I heard this was gonna happen, I'm like, oh, there was another arc. I looked it up, and man, okay. First of all, I'm happy because this is going to involve the Quincy's, which, in my opinion, should have been a rival at some point, because they already kind of set in that blood rivalry between the Soul Society and the Quincy's. But then I did a little bit of homework onto how this Quincy arc goes into it, and I think it's actually going to upset people, because we're talking about, I can't remember what it's actually called, but it's basically a Quincy Third Reich, and the enemy is kind of Nazi-esque in a way. And here's the thing, the Quincy's are based a lot in, like, where the best way I know how to explain this to people is like where the Soul Society is based in kind of Japanese mythology, and then the Espada and the Arrancars were based in Spanish. This
Mhm.
is German, and ergo, I've seen pictures of Uryu in what looks like a Nazi uniform, and I'm already worried that's gonna be the thing that gets it taken down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also it's a lot. And I laugh all the time like with my friends about Bleach and about Ichigo and all his powers and everything else. And I'm just like, what more are you gonna give this boy?
Well, I mean,
What more?
from what I understand, he gets kind of god tier powers in the last arc, but I
He's
don't
a
know that
little
for certain.
bit of he's a little bit of everything.
Yeah, they basically pretty much confirmed that he's a little bit of everybody, and
Yeah.
so it's just like, okay, so you're basically Yusuke Urameshi, but a lot more complicated.
Yeah,
That's the best way I know how to explain it.
I just want people to see, like, because I know for me, like when I read the manga and with the manga's ending and everything else like that, I just want people to see all the couples, like about who ends up together at the end, because I think that also pissed a lot of people off. I know it pissed me off when I read it.
Okay. I'm sorry, you have to explain this. Is there a reason for the anti-Orihime train to ride again? Is there, like, do they not end up?
Who?
Or Ichigo and Orihime, do they like end up?
No, okay. I hate to say this, but spoilers for anyone who hasn't read the manga at the end. But it doesn't really say anything about, like, anything like that. But Ichigo does end up with Orihime. Yes.
Okay.
I was more of an Ichigo Rukia fan.
See, I was in the Ichigo Tatsuki school, because like it almost feel like Tatsuki should have been the one.
I was a fan of Ichigo being with Rukia, and I wanted Orihime to be with Uryu. That was who I wanted. That was what I was gunning for.
Yeah, you know what, that kind of makes sense, but
and it didn't happen.
No,
and so
but from what I understand,
I was like, what?
There's a lot of crap that a lot of Bleach fans didn't expect to happen that happened in this arc in the manga. For crying out loud, you get to see Yamamoto's Bankai. And he's like the badass grandpa. I would actually compare him to people like Master Roshi in a weird way. Urahara gets his Bankai revealed in this. I didn't know that. Like, I thought they'd revealed it at some point because I haven't watched the Fullbring arc. I figured they'd probably reveal it there. But no, that apparently there's a lot of crap that happens that actually a lot of people are worried is going to hit the cutting room floor, kind of for the same reasons you are. Is that they're not going to have enough episodes, so they're not sure if they will be able to show these Bankais. And, I mean, Bankais are basically what bring people into Bleach. So, I don't know. There's a lot to consider there. But that's pretty much all we have. I have a feeling, though, if we get more information, Shay, I don't think it's going to be a tough sell to bring you back on the podcast to discuss it. Because I think that we're going to have to get into this. I mean, I wish we had more time to be able to just dissect some of the stuff that we have here, but I will say this, you and me are in talks to be able to do kind of a roundtable discussion for Bleach, just to be able to get the hype going for the 1,000-year Blood War arc. So at that point, people can also join us for that. I think so. Yes, we are definitely going to go ahead and do that. But yeah, unfortunately, we are over time right now, and given the errors that we've had tonight, I don't know if I necessarily want to push things too much farther. I'm still having kind of errors over here too. So unfortunately, the other stories that we had, I think we're going to have to move to next week. I know Alex is probably going to want to kill me for that, but we will get to it, Alex, okay?
So you say, but you've been saying that for like the last 3
these
weeks
ones,
of the other stories we've had.
These ones I think we have to get to, because there is a lot of bullcrap that we need to suss out from the anime community. So I think we'll
I was looking forward to those stories.
It's not so much the community, but rather the industry
if you guys have the time, because that's really like I don't want to impose if like Alec or if Romney has to go to work or things like that. So if you guys got the time, we can go into these stories really quick.
Well, I mean, I don't have to worry about working tomorrow, but I don't know about the others.
I mean, I'm good for tomorrow, but it's up to you guys.
Let's do it. Let's do it, because Alex, I think you said let's go, right?
Yeah,
okay.
We can go.
So yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. So Amazon, the next story that we have here, Amazon, I believe this is recent. They delisted several manga from their Kindle app, and again, for no real reason given. So really quick, I want to get into the list that we have here. It looks like it's about 15 separate manga that were ended on the Kindle app. So we have, jeez, I'm going to murder some of these names. Ari Ferretta, From Commonplace to World's Strongest. How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. Those novels have been taken down. Mixed Bathing in Another Dimension. What the hell? There Was No Secret Evil Fighting Organization. Seriously? Infinite Stratos, Seirei Gensoki, Spirit Chronicles, Grimgar of Fantasy and Ash, Lazy Dungeon Master, The Greatest Magic Master's Retirement Plan. Okay, I want to officially see an anime of that. Clockwork Planet, No Game, No Life, I Shall Survive Using Potion... No, wait, sorry, that's Clockwork Planet. And then Oraimo, Eromanga Sensei. These are just a few samples of stuff that is getting removed from the Kindle app, and Amazon will not cite the reasons.
Yeah, and most of these are light novels, so not necessarily manga. Like, there are manga in here, but most of these are light novels, which, as people may not know, this is basically prose novels. You know, those things that have just words and maybe the occasional picture here and there.
So, again, no reason has really been given. I'm just going to ask if anybody's following these light novels. Is there stuff that should be removed? Like, How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, I've heard it's fairly tame, at least the anime is, compared to other ichi.
That's because the anime tends to get a little more watered down when it compared to their source materials.
Are you saying the manga is erotica? I guess my first question would be, how would you know that?
Well, here's the thing: considering that it's the light novels, not the manga, that are being removed, you can get away with a lot when it's just prose.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that, because light novels are basically the equivalent of self-contained stories within comics, right? Where they can easily just get their own one book, right?
Well, more or less. They're basically novellas. A better comparison would be something like serialized stories that used to run in things like Reader's Digest or the Saturday Evening Post. Like, for example, the original Robert Howard Conan stories, if they were to come out today, would be technically considered light novels, where you just have multiple shorter stories that are just serialized.
Yeah, so... I mean, I want to say Amazon had a reason, but I don't know what that is, because even these light novels, maybe they could get away with a lot more, but I can't help but wonder if even, like, in the case of How Not to Summon a Demon Lord, because of the anime, they kept things fairly light. So, yeah.
Especially given that it seems to not even just be across the board. It seems to just be specific volumes in these series. Like, Ari Fureta, it's just Volume 6. How Not to Summon a Demon Lord is Volume 3, 6 through 8, and 10. And then, like, Mixed Bathing in Another Dimension, Volume 6. And then Infinite Stratos, Volumes 3 and 8. There's no consistency here with their removal process.
No, and you'd think that if they were, like, really open offenses, like, you know, actual sexual problems within it, Amazon would have no problem taking credit for that. They would come out with a statement and basically say, yeah, this is why we removed them. But the fact that they're staying quiet actually makes me wonder if it's kind of gray territory what they removed.
Yeah, and it's like the only statement that's been given is that Amazon is saying that the content, quote, did not fall within their global content guidelines, end quote, which raises the question of, okay, when have these guidelines been in place? Like, since when has this been a thing?
Well,
yeah, and
like
it kind of bugs me when people say global content guidelines, because every country has restrictions that contradict with another country. So you can't really have a global set of guidelines. You can have something equivalent to the pirate code, where it's vague and it's more like guidelines than actual rules. But then there's nothing that could be that universal across. I just don't buy that. That's me.
Sounds like someone complained. It sounds like someone's mom got a hold of something that their child was reading and did not feel that was appropriate and complained to Amazon, and which probably caused Amazon to look deeper into some of these mangas or some of these light novels to see what was actually being talked about, because who knows if when they went up there on their listing, whether or not Amazon really deeply looked into the content that was in there, because looks can probably be deceiving. So who knows, like, you know, what was in them, but maybe the covers didn't like show or insinuate what was actually inside of the actual light novel. So like I said, someone's child was probably reading it. Their parent they probably asked their parent, hey, can I download this book for Kindle? And they probably were like, okay, and then probably saw what their child was reading and then probably complained to Amazon, which probably caused them to do an investigation into the other products that were listed, which probably then caused them to remove them because they realized the content that was in them may not have been appropriate for whatever their guidelines are.
So what Shay is basically saying is that geeks are once again going to war with the soccer moms.
Yeah, but the weird thing is a lot of these titles are still available on Amazon Japan. That's part of what makes this so weird. And especially, again, if it was just these whole series being removed, all at once, that would be one thing. But it's the fact that it's specific volumes that are being taken out and not necessarily whole series, at least from what we're seeing in this article here. And especially since some of it, the three major publishers that are affected are mainly J Novel Club, Yen Press, and Dark Horse. You'd think with Dark Horse, they probably would have something to say, like, okay, where given that they have a lot of manga titles that they distribute, they would probably, have enough sway to be like, hey, Amazon, what the hell?
Yeah, and actually our live chat brings up another interesting point, is that people still think manga and light novels are for kids and teens. And at libraries, manga and light novels are listed for teens.
Well, a lot of them
So
are.
that's why I feel like probably it was someone that got, that probably thought this was for a teenager or was for their child, and it wasn't, due to the content that was in it. But instead of them saying like their global guidelines, they probably should have said like US guidelines, which probably should have been a little bit better, because we all know that a lot of the content that's in Japan and is brought over to the US, a lot of it is, censored due to our guidelines or what we feel is appropriate, or is changed to put it on TV, or however you want to put it. And that's probably what happened. Someone thought this was for their kid, downloaded it, probably read it, and then that probably could explain why only certain volumes were omitted, because maybe the other volumes were deemed okay.
Which is sad too, because
may not have been.
There's already talk that Japan is getting increased. Like, I don't know if Alex has been following this at all, but I've been following it. Japan's getting increasingly concerned with the amount of controversy that their manga, that their anime are creating. I've actually even heard that some animation studios are considering whether or not to continue distributing to the US, because of the fact that if they want to be able to do it, they have to be able to check so many boxes now to be able to not have anybody yell at them for their given anime, for their given figure, or things like that. And it just makes me sad to some extent.
Another part of that is because we're starting to get it to a point where a lot of American companies are starting to be part of these production committees. I mean, a good example of this is how both Crunchyroll and Funimation were on the production committees for Ace Attorney and My Hero Academia, because a lot of these studios realize a lot of their money is made in overseas distribution. And so it's one of those cases where they're having to make those difficult decisions of, okay, well, what's something that we can adapt that will do well both domestically and abroad, and having to adjust things accordingly. But then you've also got a lot of Western companies not researching series properly and licensing stuff without thinking. Case in point, interspecies reviewers.
Yeah, that's kind of the outlying one for Funimation, isn't it? Is like they didn't do their homework at all with that show. Get 3 episodes in and go, oh, crap.
Yeah, but then again, this is the same company that also, fully licensed and fully dubbed shows like Masters of Martial Arts, which is pretty comparable to the kind of stuff you see in interspecies reviewers.
Well, isn't Ikitosen also under their library?
That one was ADV, but I think they may have picked it up. They may have picked it up from ADV after ADV went under. But ADV, the difference is that Funimation had kind of a family and teenage sort of bent to it, whereas ADV, they acknowledged, we know people are going to be, that perverts are buying our content, and so they kind of tailored their business around that, whereas Funimation kind of tried to cater to that after ADV went under. And I remember following their YouTube channel at the time when I was in high school, when they tried that, and it was just weird. You could
Yeah,
just tell this was
I had
not
to stop because of all the Ichi that was getting advertised.
like, you could just tell this was not what Funimation was used to advertising, but it was a
No.
bunch of the stuff that they had picked up from Geneon, Pioneer, and ADV. And so it's one of those cases where ADV licensed stuff like Ikitosen because they knew their audience. They knew it was going to be the perverted anime nerds. That's also why they did the Lady Death movie. But it's kind of that same case where anime studios in Japan are becoming more cognizant of trying to market their things worldwide because they realize the amount of money that can be made.
Yeah,
And I think that just shows like how anime is now no longer an obscure genre.
no.
But also like you still have that miscommunication of looks can be deceiving when it comes to anime, because before previously when you look at like the 90s, the anime that was shown on TV was mostly garnered towards kids, and a lot of it, even if it wasn't supposed to be garnered towards kids, it was heavily changed so that it was gonna be able to be on TV. Whereas now with streaming now, you know, you have companies that were never in the anime game now in it. You have Netflix now in it, coming out with their originals. You have Amazon Prime, you know, doing their anime thing and getting to the anime game.
And
then
especially
now you have
with streaming platforms being the equivalent of international waters, they're just, you know, anime companies are not seeing a reason to have to edit this stuff down because they're going to streaming properties anyway.
Yeah, and then before even if you didn't want to edit a property down at all, you probably didn't have to, because it probably wasn't going to be shown on TV. It was probably going to be distributed to the US, but probably only going to be on a DVD or a VHS. And it was only going to be sold in stores, where the only people that were going to pick it up were those that were already, were anime fans already. So you didn't have to worry about someone's, child coming across it on TV or on a streaming platform and then watching it and realizing this isn't supposed to be for kids, and then having to complain to said streaming company, but now that's something that they have to look out for, because now so many things now are so readily available at the drop of a hat, instead of you having to go through the woodwork to try and find it.
And this is definitely something I have to consider as a parent, is like, I want my kids to be able to watch anime, but it's kind of like one of those really corny lines that you would hear from like an Animal Planet person, is like you have to know as much as you can, but then you also have to respect what also might be out there. And so at that point, like I honestly think as a parent, like when my kids get up to reading manga, I'm gonna have to look into this stuff and just say like, okay, do I actually want my daughters exposed to this? Do I think it's going to be appropriate for them to see, maybe light sex scenes or things like that in manga? And yeah, it's concerning, but also just I could see it on Japan's end too.
But then
Don't forget, Drake, you got me. Oh, Drake, act like I'm going to show them. Drake thinks I'm going to show his daughters Kanazuki no Miko when they're 5. I won't.
Well,
do
now
that.
that you've
I'll
said
wait.
it,
No,
I'll wait till they're 8.
I mean, the most that you'll probably get forced to sit down through is that may be how he finally gets you to watch K-On!
That's more what I'm worried about.
I mean, to kind of play like a weird devil's advocate though, like, then what's that to say though about American shows? Like American cartoon shows that are garnered towards kids, but have jokes that fly over a kid's head. But as an adult, if you watching it, you're like, oh man, that's an adult joke in there, but kids don't know it. And a great example of that is like Ren and Stimpy. I watched that show as a kid, and it was not a kid's show.
No,
it pushed the limit of being a kid's show, but like adults watch. Like I watched Ren and Stimpy as an adult, and I was just like, yeah, I don't see how this was on Nickelodeon,
how this got past the censors.
Yeah,
absolutely not. Yeah.
Or like even Rocko's Modern Life, or like looking at The Simpsons, or looking at like Family Guy. And yes, those shows are garnered towards more of an adult audience, but kids also watch that show. Like I was a kid watching.
They're garnered towards a family audience. So at that point, it's basically okay, because The Simpsons have been doing this for years, where they've basically given kid jokes, like they've done the fart humor, but at the same time they've also subtly gotten past adult jokes so that adults aren't just sitting there bored, kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's why I think that
the stuff alone that Animaniacs got away with in the 90s is surprising.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that's why it just goes to show that at this point, with the bigger difference is just that it's just a communication issue, I think, between anime and between like American cartoons and American humor, and the fact that how I think also like some of the content that's within anime is what kind of people get kind of like weirded out about, like the whole like loli thing, like someone who's supposed to be 18 but they look like they're 5, you know, that can probably for some people draw issues, whereas at least with, you know, like American cartoon shows that are probably are for kids but have adult, you know, humor in it, a lot of the things that are making the adult jokes are either like dogs, cats, sponges, you know, like they're not human looking. So like I think that's where people draw this weird line between like anime and like American cartoons. And I by no means am saying that American cartoons get a pass and that anime needs to change. I mean, just saying that to me just shows the biggest difference. And I feel like if anime was done very similar to American cartoons, like with the jokes and stuff, it would probably get a pass.
Well, actually, one thing that I would bring up to you as well as to the other guys, because I was actually having a very interesting conversation with a buddy of mine who was basically making the argument that Steven Universe worked the way it did because it was U.S. made, and so at that point it was pushing boundaries and being able to do so within the context that we understood. But if you think about it from a certain angle, if Steven Universe was an anime, if it was done in Japan under Japanese standards and things like that, I guarantee you it would have crosshairs on it, because at that point it would be, even though let's just say Steven Universe done the exact same way but from an anime perspective, you wouldn't be hearing about how the creator gets the current generation or how he gets to be able to do all this. You would hear the opposite, how much they don't get it, how much they're looking to put perverse thoughts into children's minds, kind of thing. And it's a sad statement, but it's true. Like, we're okay when we're the ones that are breaking the boundaries here, but then when we see another country trying to do it, we kind of take the hypocritical approach of saying, oh, no, they didn't do it the way that we intended. And I'm like, well, sometimes maybe they do it better than what we intended. Like they actually are able to, instead, because there are times when when U.S. animation hits it like a wrecking ball, and there are times where Japanese animation hits it more subtly and actually gets you to start thinking about it. And so at that point, like, I know this is not a universal answer for a lot of people, but the thing that keeps on coming to me in my mind with all of this is get fucking involved with what your kids are doing. Understand why they're watching it. Like, my older brother, his youngest just barely got into My Hero Academia. She is the only one in the house that is. And so at that point, my older brother has not watched anime since Inuyasha. That was the last thing. He watched the final act, and that was it. He was not interested in anything else. But for his daughter, he went to go watch My Hero Academia and became a fan of My Hero Academia with her because he wanted to make sure that she was getting proper messages out of it. He got fucking involved with his kids. And unfortunately, and I have to say this about a lot of lifetime friends, you're doing what your fucking parents are doing. You are not getting involved. You are not caring. And therefore, they're getting involved in the stuff that maybe you don't want them involved in. But you're not actually having the conversation. You're not saying, no, I don't want you to actually, I don't want you to read this. I don't want you to watch it. You're not doing any of that. And you're especially not getting the information that you know how to get. Sorry, this rant has been brought to you by Drac, but
no, it's I mean it's okay. Trust me, I definitely understand. As someone whose parents my parents had restrictions on some of the things I was and were not allowed to watch. Granted, I was allowed to watch The Simpsons and everything else like that. Yeah. The one show that my mom couldn't stand was South Park. My dad loved it, so we were allowed to watch it with him, but my mom hated it. But I think also when some kids, me garnered included in this, will play the whole of like if their parents are older and isn't as internet savvy, or very savvy when it comes to like turning on restrictions on the TV.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
like
or
you
at
can't
least,
access the TV show
at least getting
beyond
involved
what
to
I
the
said.
extent of like you were kind of saying, your dad loved South Park, so it was okay if he was watching with you, because then he could
Mhm.
make sure that the wrong context wasn't getting put into you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But even then, that's a willingness issue, and I can already feel like Alex building up the rage to counter me in some way. So I might as well open the floor to you, Alex, before you assault me with whatever axe you're about to grind me with.
I don't think I have anything to grind you with.
Okay.
That sounds fairly sound logic.
Yeah, just
You know, you gotta be. I do much agree with you. You gotta be the parent, and you gotta be involved, and you gotta try to understand your kid's hobby. And well, ultimately, my philosophy is just talk to your damn kid about stuff.
get involved with your kids. Like it
they
amazes
want-
me to this day how much my older brother watches with his daughters, and not just My Hero, but like for example, his oldest daughter was into Fairy Tale. He hates Fairy Tale. He absolutely despises it, but he watched it because it was something she was interested in.
You know, I think kind of a personal example on my end is, my parents were kind of the same. There was definitely content they didn't want me to watch at too young of an age, but you know, for the longest time, I've always had a real kind of interest in history. And well, the year 2000, the Mel Gibson Roland Emmerich movie, The Patriot, came out, which is of course set during the American Revolution. Well, that also, I was in 5th grade then. We were also studying the American Revolution. I know it's not a historically accurate movie, but my parents decided, well, okay, because of the timing, because of my interest, and because of everything else, I can watch this violent R-rated war movie.
Yeah, but like in your case, that worked. But let's just say you had a little brother or sister who just wanted to go see it for the cheap violence kind of thing. They would probably look at that situation and go, not so much good for you.
Yeah, and that's exactly where I can agree with you on that, is in terms of being involved as a parent and knowing what your kids like and what they're into. And again, because of my already interest in history, and because again that was the particular time that movie came out, 5th grade, we're learning about the American Revolution. It's just the stars aligned perfectly for me to be allowed to watch this movie as a 12-year-old.
I mean, for crying out loud, my sister-in-law, my older brother's wife, actually tried to make an argument. She lost ultimately, but she fought hard to get the HBO series John Adams shown in elementary school, specifically my oldest niece's class, I think, and they were like 4th, 5th grade, and it just so happened that the stars aligned that was going to be the year where they actually started getting into the American Revolution and all that, and so she thought it would be a good spot. But then I think it was the school board themselves that actually had the issue because of all of since it's an HBO series, all the graphic content that was involved in that. Even when she promised to fast forward through that, they still told her no. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think it also comes down to just an understanding, because I think when it comes to like anime, it's, unless you're someone whose parent was already into anime and can understand that a lot of anime context isn't as innocent as it may seem sometimes, and there is some like adult themes in there depending on the show. You know, they probably understand a little bit more of like, okay, maybe let me sit down and watch this with my child. But for me, when I was growing up, especially with anime, my parents didn't know what anime was. You know, they just saw it as something that was animated. So they just thought it was a cartoon.
Yeah,
you know,
they
and
saw
like
it as
most
Disney.
cartoons,
They saw cartoons, they saw Looney Tunes, they saw Disney movies. And that's not what anime was.
So I think it's just like a whole understanding thing. And when it comes to anime, so many adults and so many parents who have never seen anime in their lives, it looks like a cartoon. Like it's animated. So they automatically think of like Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney. Like that's what their mind garners and what it conjures up, not what anime actually is. So a lot of times this then would have to be like, for a parent whose child is getting into anime and you don't know what anime really is, if you have friends or know of anybody or know of anyone whose kid is probably also into it, maybe ask them and say, hey, has your child ever seen this show? Is this show appropriate for my child to watch? Because I really don't know what it is that they're watching. I don't understand it. I don't know if this is something I need to be, concerned about. Maybe also sit down and watch it with them, and don't just automatically think that, oh, it's animated, it's for kids. But bottom line, it comes down to just understanding it, and looks can be deceiving. So that's why even I now as an adult, when people find out or my family members find out I watch anime, they'll say, oh, like, isn't that for kids? And I have to like school them real quick and be like, oh no, not all anime is Pokemon on TV or anything else that you've seen. Some of it can really conjure up some really crazy emotions, can have some really crazy scenes that are not suitable for kids. And that's just the reality of it. And it just comes down to an understanding. So I applaud your brother for sitting down and watching with his kids. And also, once again, though, your brother was into anime. So like for me, if I ever had a child and they wanted to watch anime, I would greatly watch with them because I know what anime can be. But if you're an adult who has never seen anime in your life and you have never watched it and your kid's like, I want to watch this, and it's anime, you're just like, okay.
And here's the thing, he wasn't an anime fan. The reason he watched this stuff and he knew so much about anime is because a lot of his friends had like old school laser discs of some of the properties. And so one of the reasons he's not a fan is because he saw series like El Hazard and You're Under Arrest and what was the Tenchi Muyo, the original one, Ryo Oki. And so at that point, he's like, wow, a lot of this stuff is kind of bordering on porn. I have a kind of an issue with it. I think the one that ultimately broke him was Oh My Goddess. That was the one that broke him. But at the same time, like, he was able to find things like Cowboy Bebop to be able to get into. And at least when it came to his kids, like, he knew maybe what they were walking into with those series and decided to watch with them because, he wanted to make sure that, chicks with dicks weren't going to be coming out and confusing his kids. And by the way, when I say that, I'm not talking about transgender because this was the anime OVA equivalent, which was just evil guys with dicks. Okay, that's a completely different context. I'm just saying, like they and there would always be that twist, like they're a demon inside. So there you go. Romney, you've been kind of quiet on this one. Have we just been talking over you, or are we in the wrong place?
Well, I mean, I've got nothing to really add in that regard since you've pretty much already kind of hit the nail on the head of people kind of being more mindful and actually being involved with their kids, not expecting anime, manga, or light novels in the case of the story that prompted this discussion, kind of knowing what your kids are consuming and not expecting the media to do your parenting and babysitting for you.
Yes.
So there's not really much else I can really add.
Okay. Yeah, I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head here. This is exactly what these delistings are about. It's just soccer moms who don't know what they're walking into. And so at that point, unfortunately, I don't think Amazon is going to retract their decisions, maybe in time, but that's just the way it is. And they don't technically have the right to give anybody a reason.
And luckily, you can still buy the print version of it, so it's only the digital versions that have been delisted, but if people are so inclined, they can still either A, buy the digital English versions from Amazon Japan, or they can go to any book retailer and buy the physical copies and still be able to enjoy the content.
And this is kind of linking into our discussion topic, but I'm going to go ahead and say this. Getting a physical copy sometimes is a better thing because geeks, in my opinion, are the most thrifty buyers ever. They will find a place to get that as cheaply as possible, and that small business gets their business from there on in. All right, so they never. I know people who have never gone into a Barnes and Noble to save their lives because they know that if they want to get the manga that they want from Barnes and Noble, they're going to be paying an extra $5 to get it. Instead, they go to the small businesses and give them their support, and in turn get loyalty bonuses out of it. So
okay, if they're paying the extra $5, they are probably looking in the wrong places because, at least in my experience,
I'm saying they're not. They know that if they go there, they would have to, and so instead they look for other places.
Yeah, but even then, in my experience, I haven't really seen any sort of surcharges when it comes to the manga that is available at Barnes & Noble. A lot of the manufacturer retail prices that are given come from the publishing houses themselves.
No,
I mean-
in those cases, they actually find like pretty good used copies.
Okay,
And so
now
at that point, like I'm talking maybe like a dog-eared page or two, and so at that point, they're still worthwhile to put on the shelf.
okay, that
So,
makes a little more sense.
That's
now.
what I mean by thrifty here. But that actually kind of leads into our next one, which is, oh my gosh, I had a heart attack when Alex put this up,
It
and
was
I
Romney
actually,
who put it up.
what was that?
It was
Oh,
Romney.
it
who
was
put
it
up.
Romney? Oh, you gave me a heart
Yeah.
attack, Romney. Damn it! This is like
Wouldn't
the
be the
50th one
first
you give me.
time.
No, it wouldn't. So the Persona 5 anime got officially announced, or at least the box set for it got officially announced, and oh my gosh. Okay, I know nothing about Persona, guys, but if I had to pay, and I kid you not, $300 for a complete Blu-ray set for Persona 5 the animation, there better be like a hologram which can explain every plot detail to me. Okay? That's $300. And I'm guessing
Well-
that blue brick is not necessary. I mean, there's a lot of special features on here. I get that. But I just don't see a lot of this being a combined amount of $300. And in some
Yeah.
cases, more than that in other countries.
Yeah, I broke down the costs in preparation for this. The complete box set comes with 6 Blu-ray discs, so that's 26 episodes, 2 special episodes, including the bonus features, textless opening and endings, commercials, trailers,
26
spe-
episodes
and
and 6 discs?
on 6 discs.
Oh,
And so
God.
the price point, the price point, the 300 or 298.99 price point, that breaks down to about $49.83 per disc. But if you go with their suggested retail price of $398.98, that breaks it down to about $67 per disc.
Yeah.
And, well, this isn't all that surprising considering who is distributing this. Our good old friends, Aniplex of America.
Ernie
Aniplex,
Parks.
we want your wallet. Yeah, and so
That's
this
too much.
actually kind of brings us back into a topic I think you and I have talked about when we did Dragon Shadow, Alex, but I don't think the podcast has talked about it. Anime is priced too damn high. Because how
Still?
many episodes did you have per disc there, Romney?
I don't have like the episode per disc, but if you're going off of the $298 retail price, that's about $50 a disc.
50 bucks a
26
disc.
episodes, so probably 4 to 5 episodes a disc.
So we're talking Gundam Wing DVDs here, which already were horribly overpriced back in the day.
Mhm.
Because it was like, what was it, 25 for five episodes?
Granted, those were ones you had to buy individually. This will probably be a big box set.
Yeah, this is a big
Yeah.
box set, and those you had to buy individually. But it's just like, wow, this is ouch. Ouch.
Yeah, I mean, this was the same problem that that Voyager Media ran into when they were trying to get people to spend $50 on 4 episodes of Star Blazers 21.99. I mean, the only bonus thing they were offering was like, oh, well, you get the English dub, but everybody quite rightly said we are not paying $50 for 4 frickin' episodes.
And
So
this-
that's why they eventually had to go to Funimation, because Funimation could at least find a way to make it marketable, but
Yeah, well, and I know that we've had this conversation before, and I'm just going to bring it up again. Like, this is not an isolated incident. I've seen plenty of Blu-rays that contain maybe 4 episodes of a given series still out there that are $35. And it was like, for 4 episodes, and those don't even have special features. Those maybe have like 2 languages, and that's it.
Yeah, those are usually the stripped down versions.
Yes, and so at that point, $35 for 4 episodes? Dude, I lived in the VHS days where I only got 3, and I still was paying $20 and eventually said, fuck that noise. I might as well get 5 for DVDs. Sorry, I'm a little impassioned when it comes to this stuff, Shay.
No, I understand because I mean I don't buy as much anime DVDs as I used to, but I do remember when I did buy anime DVDs, like at my local Best Buy, that I remember buying the Yu Yu Hakusho box sets. Like when they sold them for seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4, those were $25
Yeah.
each for like just each season. And I remember seeing the Inuyasha box sets easily $100 to $200 inside of Best Buy, easily to get the entire like season 4 or season 5 or whatever season it was. So these prices aren't new to me. I think I'm just more shocked that people are still buying them, because the only reason why I feel like before that, I'm not even gonna say that I bought them before that, like my dad bought them, because I was a college student, so I was broke. I had no money. But at this point, the fact that so many anime now is available digitally, that it's much cheaper now to, if you want to buy it, like if you're someone that really wants to own it, to just buy the digital copy or just stream it from a service. Like for me, I have to really like an anime now if I want to buy a physical copy.
That's kind of my viewpoint too, is like I have to want to own this. Like I have to watch it endlessly. Like the only reason I upgraded to the Yu Yu Hakusho Blu-rays was because my old ass uncut original DVDs stopped working with all of my players because the codes were so out of date. And so at that point, it's like, that's really sad, because when I got those DVDs, like they were all one big Christmas present, Shay. I shit you not. I got each DVD for $3, just going through third party people on Amazon. $3 each, and I got the entire series of Yu Yu Hakusho. That was one Christmas present my dad was able to get for me, and actually made him kind of damn proud of me because I did it so thriftily, especially when it came to the delivery costs. So at that point, it's just like, now I look at a lot of the, for lack of a better term, the blue bricks that are out there right now. Like if you want to get Steins Gate, for crying out loud, like brand spanking new, it's $62. And I'm not sure how many episodes that goes, but that's a pretty thick blue brick right there. And I've even seen a couple of points where I go to Walmart, and Walmart has the exact same DVD, mint condition, like not even ripped out of it, and it has it cheaper.
Steins Gate?
No. I'm saying other anime. So, like, for example, if I wanted to try and get, say, Dragon Ball Z on Amazon, I would see it for like $30, and then I could go over to my local Walmart and see the Cell Saga for $20.
Well, there you're running into kind of different editions where there's like the higher quality editions you get, whereas Walmart, they usually have the cursed orange bricks.
Yes, but at that point, it's just like, because I can sometimes deal with the shittier versions, just because, you know, I don't need the extra commentary. I don't need to have the voice actor interviews, because you could find those eventually on YouTube, because people will put them up, and then I just go as cheaply as possible so I can get the episodes, because that's really all I want to keep, kind of thing. If I get interviews and I get stuff like that and it's still cheap, then that's added bonus material for me.
I don't even remember the last anime I think I actually bought was when they re-released the Sailor Moon episodes. Like that was the last time I think I bought like an actual like anime DVD, just because now with technology now and with anime being so readily available, that I don't feel the need to have to go hunting for half of these series anymore, because I can find them on Funimation, I can find them on Crunchyroll, I can find them on Netflix. So I don't feel the need. And I understand a lot of collectors are kind of like, but I want to physically have it. And I get that aspect. But for me now, like I have a box of anime DVDs sitting at my dad's house that I don't watch, because I bought them at the time when anime wasn't as readily available on streaming services. So I felt I had to buy them if I wanted to see them.
Yeah.
Because there was no other way for me to see it cheaply. But now I'm kind of like, I don't want to buy this, because for me, it's like, it takes up space. How many times am I realistically going to be watching this? And when I move, I have to pack this in a box.
See, let me justify this to you really quick, Shay. Okay, so I watch Yu Yu Hakusho yearly.
Yeah.
So does it make sense for me to spend the money on the blue bricks for the Blu-rays? Because if I'm going to watch it yearly, and maybe I won't have Funimation.
I mean, if you're someone who's gonna watch it like a lot, like if you're someone that's like, hey, I'm gonna put this on in the background, or I'm gonna watch this yearly, so yes, I'm gonna want to buy this. To me, great. Like do it. But if you're just buying it because
Mhm.
you're gonna watch it one time,
For
I
the
don't
sake
think
of
it's worth
collection, I think that's
Yeah.
a harder argument to make.
Mhm.
I mean, for crying out loud, the last spending spree I had was I went nuts at Right Stuff to get a bunch of Gundam series that had never made it to the States. And unfortunately, one of them was Victory Gundam. Yes, I regret that purchase. But I went and bought these because here's the bottom line. At that point, I didn't know if the Gundam Info YouTube page was going to have additional series showing up on that. I didn't know if these things were coming out ever again. Because at that point, Gundam wasn't doing anything in the States. And thankfully,
Mhm.
Alex was able to help me track them down. And I waited until like Cyber Monday and I just bought a bunch of series and I bought them on the cheap. Because
I mean, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
that makes
I
sense.
just,
I mean, yeah.
it drives me crazy when I'm doing stuff like this, but yet then we have people who will pay $100 for Persona or $300 for Persona 5 the animation, and it's not even worth it.
Well, I mean, like for me, like for example, with Rurouni Kenshin, like that series is completely out of date. So like if you wanted to buy it, you couldn't.
No.
So like when I came across that and like there's a record store that's in the Bay Area where I live, and it's called Amoeba. I don't even know if it's still open anymore. And I happened to find Rurouni Kenshin season 2, like used, and I jumped at the chance and bought it because it's out of date. There's no way I'm going to be able to buy this even online to get a physical copy unless I buy it at this time frame. I didn't really realize that I could buy stuff off of Amazon, and I was a poor college student. I didn't have money.
No.
So but to me, that's the only time I would say like to buy something is if it's like, this is greatly out of print, or when you know that they're not going to be, having it anymore. Very similar to kind of like when Disney would say, oh, this movie's going into the vault, blah, 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 you got to buy it now, kind of a thing, but nowadays,
at that point, you're justified in that because you've waited until it's not going to be around anymore, and you're getting it as cheaply as you possibly can, right? So,
yeah, I think I'm just more shocked that it's just still expensive, because I would think that these prices would have gone down because of how many options that anime fans now have to watch a series, that the DVD price would go down.
Yeah.
Like to buy it, like to me, it would go down because I understood raising the prices before because we didn't have options. So it's kind of like, hey, we either buy it or we don't watch it. Or if you did watch it, you watched it on an illegal site.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
that was
unfortunately, that's how I did a lot of my Gundam, because there were just certain series that never came back.
Well, that's how a lot of us, did it. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, nowadays, I do pay for my subscription services and stuff like that. But when I was starting out, like, really early, not really early, but when I was in college and I had kind of started getting right back into anime again, I couldn't afford to pay for a subscription service. So I had to use a lot of those sites where people had uploaded them, or watch them on YouTube where it's like part 1 of 3 in a Spanish subtitle, and for some reason it's dubbed. Like, I don't know, like that's what I had to do to watch shows that I really wanted to watch. And then at that point, me buying the series was a little bit more justified because I had no other way to actually watch this series except for me to buy the physical copies of it. But now you have Crunchyroll, where even if you don't have a subscription service with Crunchyroll, you can still watch a show on there. They have Funimation, Netflix, everything else. HBO Max now. It's kind of like you have so many options now that I would feel like companies that are like, hey, we're going to put this out here and it's going to be $400, that any anime fans just like,
yeah,
why?
Yeah, it just gets ridiculous after a certain point. I mean, another example that just barely came to my mind, and I know Alex and me have talked about it, is unfortunately the reality here is, I think the main reason you will see prices continue to happen like this is because we won't do that, because we had to be broke college students, or we had to go and live on our own money and try to make it work. But I know that me and Alex have talked about this at one point. There is some schmuck who is buying it at $300.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do the same thing with manga now. Like, if I can find a manga digitally, granted, I'll still pay the price, but I'm not buying the physical copy.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will. Granted, there there are times, but now for sake of space, because when you're living in your own place and you realize that you gotta pack this stuff up when you move, you start to buy a little less stuff.
Yeah, you see the blue bricks don't necessarily look like really cool art or anything like that anymore. They just look like, oh, that's 1 box, 2 boxes, 3 boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And it just gets harder and harder. And then coming back to kind of your pirating comment too, again, me and Alex, and I think Romney has brought this up too, we've had to pirate because certain things were just never made available. And I personally have never liked pirating stuff if I could avoid it. If I could pay for it, I always went that route. But there was, like, especially being a Gundam fan, it was so hard not to go to a pirate site because nothing was being made available.
Same. That's why even now when I hear about anime fans now, sorry to you anime fans that are listening that still pirate, but even when those fans now that say they still pirate anime, I kind of go, why? Like, I remember when we didn't have Crunchyroll, when we didn't have Funimation, when we didn't have Netflix, then I was just like, yeah, I get it. But now with all these services out, it's like, well, why?
See, my argument more is along the lines of, and again, this is going to show how old I am, but why are you complaining about a $10 a month price tag when I was a kid, when I was your age, I had to go to Blockbuster and spend $4 on a Risk. I didn't know if it was going to be good. I had to take that risk. And if I got something that was, I don't know, borderline hentai, then it was like, oh crap, I bought this. Now I got to hide it from my mom, you know? It was one of those things where I spent so much money in Blockbusters, Hollywood Videos, Video Sharks, wherever.
Same.
And now you have this series where it's $10 a month. And you still can't do that? That's kind of absurd to me. And granted, I know Crunchyroll is kind of like Funimation, Crunchyroll, Retro Crush, they all are going to have their flaws. But at least you have that option available to you. But no, to some people, that's still too expensive.
Well, that and they cater to fans. Because I remember, like, people complained with Funimation of like, oh, the reason why we pirate is because you guys take too long to come out with dubs. Then they did Simuldub, where it's just like, oh, now you can't complain that the dub's not out for another 2 years because now the dub's available like a day after now that the subtitled airs. Yeah. So for you guys who like dubs, now it's out early. And then now people are like, oh, okay, well, now I have to like pay for your service. Or, you know, and I understand it can get expensive. Like, I get it, especially if you're someone who's living with your parents. And that's why now, like, with HBO Max, like, hey, you can talk your parents into paying for HBO Max because I'm sure they're going to want to watch some shows on HBO. Yeah. Or some movies on HBO. And now you get anime with it. So it's like Netflix and Hulu. So those are sites that, you know, a lot of people have. And sometimes Funimation, I know for a period of time, Funimation even uploaded a lot of their shows onto YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I remember watching. That's how they did the simulcast for Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, is that they did it on their YouTube page.
That's how I watched their dubs.
I watched Panty and Stocking on Funimation's like page on YouTube. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember doing that.
That's pretty much what Gundam does now, is that they just put their... They don't dub anything, but they just put their series up on the Gundam Info channel, and then they just they let it sit there.
Yeah. Like, there's so many options now.
Yeah, especially given that with internet advertising being in a money stream for larger companies, it's a case of, hey, yeah, we'll leave this highly demanded series up here and just make money off the ad revenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another trend that I'm noticing with this type of pricing, this is something because Bandai tried it, and then Aniplex has also been trying it, because one thing people need to realize is that the 300 price point, that's kind of standard in places like Japan, where that's almost expected that that's how much people have to pay for. That's why Gundam never really got a foothold here in the States, was because Bandai thought, oh, we're going to charge this really like large price for this series. And literally a lot of people in America having to explain to them, yet no, if you charge this much for your DVDs, no one will buy them. And it got so bad to the point, although Bandai blames piracy for the shutdown of Bandai America, the fact that they were charging hundreds of dollars for their Gundam DVDs, because that was what they charged in Japan, was very much a big factor.
Yeah, it was basically not understanding the U.S. market. And I actually remember a lot of people making very competent arguments to Namco Bandai, just put more episodes in the DVDs. just like put in 8 episodes. Like you had Gundam Wing's a perfect example. You could divide that, I think it was like 40, no, it's like 48, 49 episodes. You could easily do like 6, 7 episodes per DVD and be able to cut that down, and then we wouldn't have to worry about spending so much and people would buy your shit. Well, they still didn't want to do that. And the funniest thing is when series like Gundam Wing hit the Anime Legends brand and you got basically the entire series for $20, they went off like hotcakes, and Bandai Namco still wasn't listening.
No, because Bandai was like Japanese companies in general are notoriously stubborn.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of actually paying competitive rates to hire new animators, as opposed to the old model of, oh, well, you started on the bottom and you work your way up. The fact that Kyoto Animation did that competitive pace method is still a foreign concept to most established anime studios. That's how far behind a lot of these companies are.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating to me. But
I think also, like, isn't in Japan, like, I don't know if this is the case still, but I know at one point in Japan they didn't actually have like an anime streaming service. So
No.
that's why selling DVDs there was still so prevalent compared to here.
no,
Because here, like, it's not really a thing anymore.
It's partially also because of the rental market and how a lot of companies really fought against the idea of renting movies, renting video games. They very much had to be a case of, okay, well, we have to mark these up because we know people are just going to rent this stuff.
Well, correct me if
And
I'm
then-
wrong, Romney, but also didn't the rise of mobile also kind of affect that and actually got them to start looking at streaming services too?
Yeah, more or less, mostly because it was just became a case where, and this is something that people have been noticing in gaming as well, where a lot of the more mainstream video games for consoles are starting to lag behind because, yeah, you could buy a really expensive console and spend almost $100 on a regular game, just a standard edition,
Yeah.
or you could just as easily get a game for free on your phone or at a cheaper price and play it on your phone, or play it on PC without having to buy a new console every so often. And so it's weird because Japan, with their economic approach with a lot of these companies, it's been something that's starting to change, but there is very much this whole resistance to change, this whole idea of trying to preserve the old guard. I mean, a good example, when you look at what we got with Skyward Sword and then compare it to Breath of the Wild, all of the changes that were implemented in Breath of the Wild that a lot of the people working on Zelda wanted to implement for years but couldn't because Miyamoto wouldn't let them. As soon as they were given the opportunity, boom, they basically got to make the Zelda game they wanted, because there's just this deference to tradition that is just baked into the culture. And that's the same thing we're seeing with business, is that people are still trying to treat it as though it's the 90s. And
Well,
yeah,
well,
they-
even if you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and so like, and even though, yeah, you can make money off merch and off of DVD sales, they kind of have to understand, yeah, trying to charge these exorbitant prices for DVDs and Blu-ray, especially in countries where the inflation rate is not nearly as high as in Japan, isn't going to really work out for them.
No, not really.
Yeah. I mean, I even wasn't, as far as I know, anime was one of the last things to kind of like go digital. Like, music went digital, movies were available like online and through streaming, music was available on like iTunes and, you know, stuff like that. But anime took a really long time to hit that like streaming space. And to me, what took it to get to that point was because of pirating.
Yeah.
Because so many people were pirating everything. I remember at one point, I think it was like 2008, people were talking about, you know, anime was becoming bankrupt. They were losing money. And I feel like the only reason why they started to gain momentum again and go back to this resurge of like a lot of people like buying it and actually supporting the industry is due to people were pirating and they had to find a way to do something. Because I remember that
the anime industry still doesn't even trust the US market to that extent. Is like they immediately assume, unfortunately, that a lot of us just pirate their content.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, look at like, what was it? I know it was an anime Funimation did D Gray Man. You know, D Gray Man was a show that did great in Japan, and then a lot of people here greatly loved the show. And I remember one of the voice actors was at a panel, and someone had asked him about if they were going to do any more D Gray Man. He's like, honestly, I don't know, but you guys have to go out and support the show.
Yeah.
A lot of people pirated that show, so then it never finished because they saw that it wasn't making money. But that's because people weren't buying the DVDs, but people were watching it. People just weren't spending $50 to buy the series. They were like, I'm not going to buy this entire series or wait for the dub. So I might as well just watch it on this such and such site and watch it completely for free. So why would I go now pay for it? And then that caused a lot of series that a lot of people have known and loved to never finish because they're like, oh, it's not making money. Okay, we're not going to order any more of this because the American audience doesn't like it. But no, the American audience is like it. It's just we don't want to pay that amount of money to support it because it's too high, too expensive. And now it's like, well, now everything's so readily available. Now it's kind of like, why are you now buying the DVDs unless it's a show that you really, really like, or if it's an older show and they're like now are deciding to reproduce it and release all the episodes now onto like a DVD, then yeah, I say go out and buy it as like a collector's if it's something that you as a kid used to love and enjoy. Like for me with Sailor Moon, do it. But if it's like something like this that's $400 where it's just like, really?
Yeah. I mean, especially when you consider that this is an adaptation of a video game that you can get for $50 that tells the exact same story and probably in a way that's a lot better because people forget that the Persona 5 anime...
That was actually going to be my question to you, Romney. It's the exact same story in the game?
Yeah, it's the exact same story as Persona 5. Literally, it's an adaptation of the video game. And so, in my opinion, I'm just like, okay, I may be a fan of the Persona series. Not really. I'm more of a Devil Summoner fan. But for the sake of example, it's like, okay, I could spend, $300 to get this Blu-ray that has an English dub, or I can spend $50, get Persona 5 Royal that tells the same story, has the same English voice cast, and honestly have a much better time because then it's a case of, okay, well, it's basically you're either paying $300 for a story you already get, or you can pay $50 for the same story with the same voice cast. And that's why I'm thinking of all the anime series to try to pull this with. Why Persona 5?
I think it just sounds like a way of just someone being able to flaunt their money. Like to me, if you can buy something for $50 for the exact same story, why would you pay $300 for it unless it's just a way of showing that you have the money to buy this box set as a way to flaunt your wealth or the way to flaunt like, hey, look what I was able to buy,
really
kind of a thing.
Like, Shay's kind of right. There's probably at least one or two people that are doing it that way.
Yeah, but to that I would simply say, I would simply say weird flex, but okay.
Yeah.
But I mean if you think about it, that's what a lot of people do now. It's always a flex. When you look at how people compete with online or in the digital space like Instagram, Facebook, however, Twitter.
Look what I have,
it's always a flex.
Yeah.
Like, look, I can show you guys what I can buy. Look how much money I have. I can spend this much on this Persona 5. And then some people will ooh and ah about it. They'll get a lot of likes. They'll get a lot of comments. While someone else is probably like, hey, I got the same thing for $50, but it's not a flex because it's not the $300 one or whatever. I mean, we see people do it all the time. Like people will re-release Jordans, re-release shoes, and you're like, didn't those come out like 4 years ago? Oh, but they re-released them. I have those. They're not these ones. Why?
Yeah. Look, I'm a Transformers fan. I don't need to buy the original 1980s figures when they re-release them. If I have like the vintage Optimus Prime, I don't need it again because it's on my desk and that's all that matters, kind of thing. Alex, you've been kind of quiet on this one, and actually we are getting to a point where I'm going to need to call it because I've still got to get up early tomorrow morning. But I'm going to give you the final thought here because I know you and I have talked about this, and I think a lot of the stuff that you and I have come to, and maybe Shay and Romney kind of agree on this, is there's certainly a lot of compromise that needs to happen here. Like the Japanese companies need to be able to trust the audience, but also be willing to listen to their complaints. And when they say you need to listen to the market better and lower the DVD prices and maybe put more into them, then they would actually see an up there. And so there's just a give and take that probably will never happen. when it comes to
And
something
I
like
don't,
this.
and I don't see Aniplex changing at
No.
all. They've been doing this for, Aniplex of America. They've been on, right, as sort of the U.S. distribution arm of Aniplex, has been on the market in the U.S. for the last 11 years now. I remember pretty vividly 11 years ago when they announced The Garden of Sinners, Kara no Kyokai. That Blu-ray set, also fairly pricey for that release. And I was like, okay, there's no way, because Bandai, I was thinking the same thing as Romney. Would Bandai tried this and it failed miserably for them? But here we are, 11 years later, they're going strong, stronger than ever. And well, I think it's just the hard facts of it is Aniplex has the shows that people want. They have the shows that people love. Whether for the hardcore people who want to buy the stuff, they are there for them. For everybody else, well, they get the shows that can be on Cartoon Network and on Adult Swim and get that mainstream success elsewhere. So that's why I kind of don't see it. And my issue is, of course, a couple issues. For one, I think it's kind of incentivizing other anime publishers to look at it because I've seen Pony Canyon do this. But the problem is, like I said, Aniplex has the shows to kind of back it up to justify these kinds of price points because they are the shows that people like and the shows that are popular. Other shows that I'm sure obviously have a good following, have a good audience reception. Just an example from my end, Pony Canyon USA released the Sound Euphonium Blu-rays, also at a really, really high price point. And I'm just like, I know Euphonium has a really solid audience reaction to it. A lot of people like it, myself included. Kyoto Animation certainly has a following, but is it enough that people will go out and pay $200 for a Blu-ray set of that show? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Right. And now and probably not because I don't see them listed anymore. I only see like one Blu-ray of the second series. And that's the problem with Aniplex doing this. And I'd be okay with the raising in prices if that was actually, trickling down into the industry proper, into the animation studios they hire.
But it probably isn't.
It's not, because every week I still see another story about animators who are woefully overworked and very underpaid still.
Yeah.
In-betweeners are still barely making enough to survive. And considering so much of the work is based in Tokyo, which is no doubt an extremely expensive city to live in, right? These animators are making peanuts, but the publishers and the rest of the production committee are reaping all the profits.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation, and I wish that some people would at least be willing to come to the negotiating table, but I think we've kind of hammered this. Like, you're never going to get the Japanese companies to do it. Not right now. They're too stuck in their ways.
I mean, not unless you find a way to really, really... It's kind of like with anime coming to streaming. It's a case of the only way they'll change is if it somehow makes them more money.
Yeah.
But we're a long ways off, especially now that Japanese studios are facing much stiffer competition with a lot of the Netflix anime series that have been coming out, which, again, not entirely a positive because there are some issues studios run into working with Netflix, but stuff like that is starting to give them a serious run for their money because when you compare a series like Persona and they're charging $300 as opposed to, say, something like Castlevania or the Ultraman series where they release it on home video for like $20 per volume,
yeah,
it's going to take a full-on shake-up where basically one or two of these anime companies is going to have to really crash hard before the other studios start to actually.
Yeah, you're going to have an example.
Like Aniplex would have to go like full-on bankrupt and completely fold before other studios start thinking, "Hey, maybe we should reconsider this."
Yep. All right. Well, I hate to do this, guys, but like I said, unfortunately, I actually do need to get up early. And honestly, I would have no problem continuing this conversation, even on like a roundtable discussion, because a lot of awesome opinions have been given here. And I still to some extent think that we could scrape even further down into it and actually try to either solve it or at least try to explain why it's happening. But unfortunately, yeah, I actually do need to call it here because, unfortunately, it's me that actually is being held up because I still got to get up early tomorrow morning. So let's go ahead and wrap things up. And the last thing that we actually need to take care of is the votes are in. And Geek News Movie Night has been decided, and I'm sorry, Alex, but you got dethroned.
Curses.
Curses, yeah. So you are no longer the reigning defending. I can't do the Paul Heyman voice right now, but I can't make you Brock Lesnar anymore because I have to hand the belt over to Shay, who contended with you last time and now has won.
Congratulations, Shay.
Shay, what this basically means, Shay, is so your movie is the one that we will be watching. We'll still need to figure out a day to be able to do that because I'm not sure if next week will work, but we'll figure that out in our own time. And that movie is going to be A Silent Voice. I have to go through the pain again, don't I? Yes, that's gonna happen.
Yep, you do.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if that's the reason Shay won, is like not because Shay like did anything nefarious, but because a lot of the people who follow a lot of us like to cause me pain. And so that's what's going to happen here. And then they're going to regret it when I give the unpopular opinions in the actual podcast. But nonetheless, congratulations to Shay. She is the reigning, defending, current champion. And I think it's either going to be next week or even probably the following week that we can get together and review A Silent Voice and give it the treatment that we feel it deserves. Is that a great way to be able to put it, Shay, or am I not doing it justice?
No, you're doing it. You're doing a good job.
All right,
I know
cool.
this causes you pain, so okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to make you feel bad over it. It's really it's more what the movie is and what it tries to do. It's not because you picked it or anything like that.
No worries.
I know that some people are just more interested in hearing more of my unpopular opinions on that movie. So we will figure that out, but congratulations to Shay, and the next Geek News Movie Night will be A Silent Voice, so you guys can also join in on that and be able to watch it. I think it's very much available, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. I think Amazon had it on Prime for a while there.
I have like 3 copies of it on Blu-ray. So
You do?
yeah,
What is wrong with you?
it's a
Never
good
mind.
movie. Damn it.
It is a good movie.
It's a good enough movie. He wants to hand copies to people like, please watch this. Please watch this. Okay, so yeah, it's going to be openly available, so you guys can join us as well. But let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. If people want to reach out to us to be able to take a look at our content, as well as be able to ask us questions about our opinions expressed here tonight, or maybe even about your own individual content, Shay Tari, how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can get a hold of me on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/ShayTari. I'm also on Twitter. It's also Shay Tari. I think there's Shay_Tari though.
Yeah.
You can find me on there, and yeah, I post videos 3 times a week.
Yes, and so you do the nerd news. You've done you do Motivational Monday, as well as you have let's see, what do we have here? We actually have the I love that this was redone. The retake on Orihime versus Sakura, so you guys can check that out, as well as you just barely did a review of I think it was the first volume or episode of The God of High School.
Mm-hmm.
So that's up as well. And just recently, I haven't watched it yet, but I know it's on my list, where you get into black cosplay. And, and I'm sure that that's going to create a bunch of controversy too. I can't wait to see that comment section. Hopefully it's not that bad, but you know.
So far it's been pretty positive.
All right, cool. I look forward to the video then, because when I saw it, I'm like, that could go one of 2 ways. But we'll see what happens. Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do people get a hold of you?
You can follow my YouTube channel, Shadow Blazer 3000. That's where I do anime-related content. And apologies if I haven't seen or liked your comments recently. YouTube's been kind of dropping the ball when it comes to my push notifications. So there's, yeah. I don't know if it is happening to anybody, but it's certainly been happening to me. All right. So yeah, follow me on my YouTube, and if you always want to be notified of when I push out new videos, you can follow my Twitter at AlexJShort.
All right. And Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can always find me under my handle, Studio Ghost Utah. That is my handle on YouTube, Facebook, and SoundCloud. I upload to those 3 platforms when I actually have something to upload. Things have kind of been up in the air because of reasons. And if you want to see a more personal side of me, something that shows, more of my activism, as well as pictures of cats, the occasional video game tidbits, followed by more cats, and maybe if you, wish really hard and it's a blue moon on Friday the 13th and the planets have aligned, the occasional doodle, you can find me on Instagram at RomneyDoesArt. And if you want to interact with me directly, send me ideas, ask for my opinion on anything. Seriously, Adam has 2 kids. He's not my secretary. We're not attached at the hip. If you want to interact with me directly, you can do so through my Twitter at Romney Reviews. And given that we're well over time, I'll try to keep my recommendations short. For this week's Romney's recommendation, I'm recommending a comic that in recent weeks I feel has become surprisingly relevant, and the premise is pretty much right there in the title. The title of the graphic novel is Superman Smashes the Klan, which, straightforward, it's basically Superman versus the Ku Klux Klan. It's a retelling of a story from the Superman radio show where it follows a Asian family moving from Chinatown to downtown Metropolis, and naturally they run afoul of the Ku Klux Klan trying to establish a foothold in Metropolis, and of course Superman, being Superman, decides, hey, that's not right, so I'm gonna stop them. I'm not really doing it justice with my summary. It's being written by an author I enjoy, Jean Luen Young, best known for Boxers and Saints, with artwork by Guruhiru. It pretty much is a case example of how to do Superman right, how to demonstrate how to make Superman a compelling character, and demonstrate what Superman stands for as a character. And with everything going on right now, it's the kind of Superman story we need. So that is this week's recommendation, Superman Smashes the Klan.
All right. And for me, if you want to be able to ask me questions, the best way to be able to do so is go to my Twitter at Drac2326. That's usually where I get them, and that's usually where I expect them. And if you want to be able to follow sillier things from me, like pictures of my kids, as well as fart memes and geek jokes that I just enjoy the heck out of, you could follow me on Instagram at Drac2326 as well. And also, obviously, you guys are on my YouTube channel, so you guys can check out all of the content that I provide. I actually do a lot of live streams. Tomorrow, in fact, we're going to be continuing our journey into The Last of Us Part 2, because Amazon is making me wait an additional week for Ghost of Tsushima. Damn you, Amazon. So at that point, you guys can look forward to Last of Us Part 2 tomorrow, as well as all of the other content that my channel provides. If you guys want to support the podcast directly, the first thing that we ask you guys to do is support the RSS feed, which is geekynro.libsyn.com, where you will get all of the episodes, whether it be Geek News Movie Night, whether it be a roundtable discussion, whether it be just a regular episode of Geek News. It's all there, and you guys can all enjoy it right there at any given moment. You also can join us live for the podcast and contribute to the live chat, like we've had a lot tonight. I usually do these streams on Friday nights at 10 o'clock Eastern time, so you guys can join us then and be able to join in the live chat as well as the discussion that's being displayed here. If you guys want to support on social media, you can do so under the exact same tagline on Twitter and Facebook, GeekyNRO, where you'll get up-to-the-minute information on when we're going live. The polls for Geek News Movie Night will also be posted there, so you can cast your vote for those. You can also be able to join in on maybe some stories that don't get brought up on the podcast. So that's a great way to be able to do so. And of course, if you guys want to leave suggestions for stories, as well as maybe guests, or bring Shay on so she can talk about insert anime here, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. I'm not guaranteeing that Shay will arrive promptly, but who knows? Maybe it'll happen. We'll have to figure that out, because that's the way it goes. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. Once again, thank you so much to Shay Tari for joining us on another interesting night where we've had plenty of errors, but also a lot of really good discussion. I actually, this is going to be one of those episodes I really do like in the long run, and hope a lot of people got to listen to. But it's always fun. It was always a fun time to be able to have Shay here, as well as Alex and Romney. And we will be back probably not next week for more Geek News reviews and opinions, because unfortunately next week is kind of a local holiday, and I think at least one of us, probably two of us, are going to have kind of a hectic work schedule that week. So we might have to skip a week and move on into the next week. That'll probably be when the Geek News Movie Night happens. I'm not sure, though. So you guys will be able to join us the following week for more geek news, for reviews, and opinions. So for myself, for Romney, for Shay, and for Alex, we will see you guys next time.